Story 1. Parents refused to pay for my college, saying I should be independent, but then offered to cover all my sister's expenses, so I left, but now my dad wants me back after a big family fight. So 2 years ago, my parents told me that it was time for me to start becoming independent. I had just recently turned 18 and was about to start college. I already started applying to places when they sat me down and gave me their little speech about how important it was to learn the value of money and independence. And so they wanted me to fund my own college tuition and learn how to do everything for myself. They said that they would support me occasionally if I really needed it, but they would really prefer for me to find out how to live life on my own. Now, to put it politely, they pretty much showed me the door as soon as I turned 18. It was kind of unexpected since my parents and I had never had a particularly bad relationship. But I did not argue with them because I thought it would be better for me to find out how to figure things out on my own. So I decided to agree with their terms and started thinking of ways to pay through college for myself. I had saved up a certain amount of money by doing part-time jobs for the last couple of years, so I was not that worried either. After I got accepted into the college of my choice, I decided to work through college to be able to pay off my tuition and other expenses. So that's how I've been covering all expenses for the past 2 years. It's been difficult, I'm not going to pretend, and it's been all sunshine and rainbows because I'm always really exhausted after classes. But after that, I still have to work, and it's kind of difficult because I don't get paid all that much either. So I end up living very frugally and working really hard, so it's quite overwhelming for me sometimes. I do ask my parents for money and they help me out with the more mundane and small expenses, but I mostly try to avoid it as much as possible since I just keep thinking about how they had told me that it's important to be independent back when I turned 18. But now, after what I learned recently, I don't know if they meant any of that or if it was just a way to get out of paying for me to go to college. I have a younger sister and she just turned 18 a couple of months back. So she's around the same age as I was when I got that it's important to have your own independent speech from our parents and is going to start college in a couple of months as well. I figured that they would take the same route as her, but instead a couple of days ago my sister contacted me to tell me that my parents had actually offered to cover all her college expenses. And she was shocked because she knew that things had not been the same for me. I was very confused as well because my parents had said that they were doing well, but they were not financially well off enough to send both of us to college and cover all our expenses as well. So they wanted me to be independent, and we probably going to go the same way for my sister as well. So what had just happened was very confusing. My sister told me that she was pretty confused as well and had even talked to our parents about it, but they had told her not to worry about these things. After that conversation with her, she told me that it would be better for me to speak to our parents directly about this. And I called my mother up right after I hung up. I didn't waste any time and I got straight to the point and asked them why they had offered to pay for all of my sister's college tuition and expenses while they had encouraged me to be independent and pay for myself. I was pretty pissed off because honestly I was not having a good time and it had become very difficult for me to balance my work and my academics as well. My GPA was not where I wanted it to be, and I was still struggling with money, so all of it seemed really pointless. And there my parents were offering to cover all my sister's expenses, leaving me to fend for myself. I found it very unfair, so I was pissed off. And when I confronted my mother, she put me on speaker and my dad also joined the conversation. They started trying to come up with excuses at first. Initially, they said that they had believed that they might not be able to pay for both of us to go to college. But recently they realized that they wouldn't actually have a problem with it, which is why they had offered to pay for my sister to go to college, and they didn't think that I would take it personally. But I wasn't going to buy that. My mother was literally an accountant. There was no way that she couldn't have known that they would be able to afford this. So this was definitely something that they had planned, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. After a lot of beating around the bush, they finally told me that they had offered to pay for my sister to go to college because they thought she was a better student and it was safer to bet on her than on me. I honestly didn't know what to say to that because even though it was true, it hurt a lot that they didn't even think that I was worth spending money on. Maybe my sister was better than me academically, but I was not that bad either. I might have been a mediocre or an average student when I was in school, but for them to decide that I was not worthy of being sent to college and having a comfortable life was so hurtful. I don't mean to come off as entitled, but it felt like they were treating me unfairly, and on top of that, they had actually lied to me. I might have even respected their opinion if they hadn't kept this from me, but instead they had chosen to manipulate me into thinking that they were looking out for me and wanted me to be independent, whereas in reality they just wanted a way out of paying for me to go to college. After my parents said that to me, they tried to tell me that they really did want the best for me, but they were not sure if it would be worth it for them, and I don't know what they were trying to do, but I felt like they were just rubbing salt in the wound. They claimed that they had believed that my sister would choose a really expensive college because of her great grades, and they had to be prepared for that, so they wanted me to work my way through so that they would be able to support my sister. The only reason they hadn't been honest with me was because they did not want to hurt my feelings, but that was kind of pointless because now I knew the truth and my feelings were hurt anyway. And I can tell you for a fact that if they had just been honest with me from the beginning, my feelings might not have been as hurt as they are right now. I did not say anything to them and just hung up abruptly because after what they said, I just lost all interest in speaking to them. And then I texted my sister and I told her about what I had learned. She and I are pretty close, so she deserves to know what was going on. She told me that she was shocked that our parents would do such a thing and said that she was not going to accept a single dollar from them. But I told her not to be absurd and to let them pay for her tuition since she actually was a bright student and she deserved this. So I convinced her to take the money and attend the college of her choice. I also communicated to her that I would not be keeping in touch with our parents anymore because what they had done was really hurtful and I didn't want to speak to them for a while. We go on Thanksgiving and Christmas break in a couple of weeks, so I had been planning on going home, but now I don't think that's going to be happening. I didn't say anything else, but I guess my sister must have told her parents that I would not be coming home while we were on break. And I didn't know where I was going to go, probably stay with my grandparents for a bit, but all I knew was that I just didn't want to see my parents at the moment. But my sister made the mistake of telling them about it, and now things have gotten really ugly. The day after that conversation, my sister reached out to me and told me that our parents had apparently been fighting after she had told them that I wouldn't be coming back home during the holidays. And she hadn't exactly been trying to eavesdrop on their fight, but they were being so loud that she had been able to hear all of it anyway. Apparently, this had mostly been my mother's idea, and she had somehow convinced my father that they should make me pay for my own college tuition because in case my sister chose to go to college in a different country, which might have been likely since she had the grades for it, and she has always wanted to travel, so it might have been a likely choice. My mother just wanted to keep all the options open for her and save as much money as they could for my sister's sake, which is how she had convinced my father. But now, after I had finally learned the truth and decided to cut ties with them, he was more upset about it than anybody else. He was blaming my mother for all of it, claiming that this was all her fault since she was the one who had manipulated him into agreeing with her, and in doing so they had ended up alienating me, and now I didn't even want to come back home for the holidays to spend it with them. I know that I'm mad at both my parents, but I really don't think that it's fair for my father to blame my mom because I think he was equally a part of this anyway. My sister said that they had been fighting relentlessly, and apparently my father had even threatened to leave her if she didn't speak to me and somehow convince me to come back home to them. My sister just wanted me to know about all of this so that I wouldn't be surprised when my mother contacted me, and I've got to say that heads up really helped. After she told me this, I went over everything for a while and really thought about what I wanted to do. And I came to the conclusion that even if they were fighting and even if they were upset, it was not my problem. I was going through a lot on my own and had enough on my plate to worry about. I couldn't take on their marital problems and make them my problems as well. I was not going to go home for the holidays, so I was not going to change my mind no matter what my mother said. And with that mindset, I answered my mother's phone call yesterday. I already knew that no matter what he said, I was not coming back home. If my dad actually decided to leave her over that, it was their problem and not mine, just like I had to deal with my money problems by myself and they had claimed that I should be independent. I was going to give them a taste of their own medicine and claim that they should be independent and deal with these problems themselves. I thought it was fair enough. But after a bit of a conversation with my mom, she started accusing me of being heartless and said that I was making a big deal out of absolutely nothing. She claimed that I was not entitled to the money anyway, so I was being a brat by acting like they had wronged me by not offering to pay for my college tuition. I found that a bit offensive because I was not upset that they had not paid for my college tuition. I was upset that they were treating me and my sister differently, and also that they had tried to manipulate me into thinking that this was somehow good for me. If they hadn't gone on and on about how to be independent, I might have gotten a student loan and dealt with this in a much easier way. But then I would need them to be my co-signer, and that's not exactly independence, and that was the reason why I hadn't taken that way out. My mother, however, said that the only reason she had been treating me and my sister differently was because our grades had a huge difference, which I thought was more offensive. Huge is a big word. I had mentioned this earlier as well, but I just want to bring it up again. I'm really not that bad of a student. My sister has always been a straight A student and I cannot deny that, and I'm really happy for her. But it's not like I'm an idiot. I've been good at things and not so great at certain others, just like any other person. But the major that I have chosen I've always been good at, and I think my parents should have taken that into consideration before they did such manipulative and downright mean things. My mother and I ended up arguing for almost 15 minutes, and even then we were not able to come to a decision about what to do. I told her very firmly that I was not coming back home for the holidays, and that was my final call. She and my father had screwed up big time, and I just did not even want to see them right now. My mother thinks that I'm being unreasonable and that I need to grow up instead of being so petty. She still thinks that I'm being entitled, and I think she is being manipulative again, so we are in a deadlock right now. I just feel bad because I really don't want my parents to get divorced with this of me, even though I'm not even sure if my dad is actually going to leave her over something like this, but they have had really bad fights in the past as well, and my dad has never said anything of the thought, so I'm kind of scared they have been high school sweethearts, so for him to say that he's going to leave her is a very big deal. So Aita, for not wanting to go back home to my parents for the holidays after I found out that they had offered to pay for my sister's college tuition after refusing to do the same for me earlier. Update 1. Hey, so thanks for all the comments on my original post. It's been 3 days since I spoke to my mother, and things have been weird for now. I've kept in touch with my sister. She keeps telling me that I don't need to worry about any of this, because she knows that I'm really struggling right now. I also decided to quit my job. I realized that it was the one thing that was holding me back, to be honest. I was spending half my time at work and half trying to make up by studying extra hard, and I didn't even realize at what point I started being so consumed by my work and my academics that I had literally no time left to do the things that I really liked. I was living like a zombie for the past couple of years, and I've just been so stressed that I don't even think I've gone out with my friends in the last couple of weeks. But I decided to go out this weekend, and even they were surprised because I mostly just stayed in my room cooped up all day since I usually work from home anyway. I've decided to live a little. I have also spoken to my grandparents, my dad's side, about all of this, and after a brief discussion they told me that if I needed a loan or any sort of money I could take it from them. And since there is just a little time to go before I finally graduate, I have decided to accept their help. So my grandparents are going to cover me for these last few months. I also have some of my own money set aside, and I'm not really worried about any of that anymore. They also told me that I'm welcome to live with them during the holidays because I don't want to go and live with my parents right now. They were also shocked when they found out the real reason my parents didn't offer to cover my college tuition. My grandpa had offered to pay for me as well, but I was the one who had said no since I wanted to be independent or whatever. Now I'm pretty much regretting the decision since I lost a lot of things in the process of trying to be independent just because my parents wanted me. I was a total fool and I shouldn't have fallen for any of it. Update 2. So it's been a week since I last spoke to my mother, and today, since I was not replying to any of her messages or responding to her calls, she decided to show up at my college. I've got to say, I really wasn't expecting that. The last couple of her messages were her saying that I needed to speak to my father because he was very upset about everything, and she also kept trying to convince me that she and my father loved both their kids equally, and that they really didn't have any intention of treating me unfairly, but they were just trying to do the more practical thing that didn't really make any difference to me. I was pissed at both of them, and I didn't want to speak to either of them, so I had been ignoring her. But today, when she showed up, I couldn't exactly just ignore her. She called me a bunch of times and I didn't pick up, but then she texted me and said that I needed to come see her because she had driven all the way out here to see me specifically and speak to me in person, and she was not going home without talking to me. I tried to tell her that I really didn't want to speak to her right now because I was not in the right state of mind, but she refused to leave, and eventually I had to go talk to her. We decided to go to the nearby Wendy's and speak there because in case we had a fight or any sort of disagreement at all, I really didn't want to be seen by any folks from my college, and since it was evening I knew that Wendy's wouldn't have anybody from my college there, so the coast would be clear. Once we got there, she ordered some food for me even though I kept telling her that I didn't want to eat, but she said that she wanted to make it up to me and got me a lot of things to eat, and then we finally started talking, or rather she started explaining herself. She told me that she was really sorry about the way she had treated me and said that there was just no excuse for it. She said that she had kept trying to justify all of this to me, and some to herself as well, but she had realized that what she had done was wrong and there were just no two ways about it. And now she was here to acknowledge her mistakes and ask me to forgive her and at least consider coming back home for the holidays because we have a lot to talk about clearly. But I told her that I had already spoken to my grandparents and they had said that I could live with them during the holiday days. I said that I could meet her halfway, and if I felt like it I would come to stay with them for a couple of days, but not more than that since I really needed some time away from them, to be honest. She seemed a bit upset when I said that, but she figured out that this was the best that she was going to get out of me, so she did not argue about it anymore. Then she told me that my sister had been accepted into a bunch of great colleges, but had been saying that she didn't want my parents to help, and that sort of made me feel bad because I knew that she was doing it for me. I told my mother that she didn't need to worry about any of that. I would make sure that my sister took the money from them and didn't make any sacrifices. I love her and I really don't want her to go through the same things that I did, because being independent and paying your way through college, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. I know this might sound very spoiled, but I would much rather have parents who paid for everything until I had a job of my own, if I'm being really honest, so don't be fooled. People who have rich parents who are willing to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on them really have it easy, and we are only fooling ourselves by claiming that we are better than them just because we are independent. Life is easier for them and it's just practical. People may disagree with me yet, but it's true. We all know that anyway. I reassured my mother that I would make sure that my sister allowed them to pay for her to go to college, because if she tried to work alongside studying she would definitely flunk, because she's not used to that sort of thing. I don't want her grades to drop the same way that mine did. I also couldn't help myself and asked her how things were going between her and my father since last I heard he had been threatening to leave her, and my mother seemed a bit surprised by that question, but she told me that things were going fine. They had decided to go for marriage counseling since they had been fighting a lot over the past couple of weeks, and it had been over my situation. Surprisingly, my father hadn't even tried to contact me after the last conversation that we had, where I found out the reason they hadn't paid for my tuition. I asked my mother about it, and she told me that he had been extremely upset, and he had wanted to reach out to me several times, but just kept second-guessing himself and couldn't build up the nerve to do it. She had told him to text me and just get it over with, but he just kept overthinking everything, and that's why he hadn't been able to say anything to me so far. My mother actually had tears in her eyes while talking about this, and I felt awful about it too, because my dad's not a very emotional guy, so I know that things must be really bad for him if he's acting this way. After hearing about my dad's condition from her, I decided to do something very impulsive and told her to put him on a call right then. Even though she was surprised, I told her that I just wanted to speak to him. I didn't even expect an apology or anything right now. I just wanted to have a conversation with him because I really miss speaking to him. Earlier, before we were fighting, we would get on a call every other day because I was always closer to my dad, so no surprise that he actually stood up for me this time. I know that they screwed up, both of them, but they're my parents and I'm really willing to forgive them and work through this. This might not be a decision that everybody agrees with, but it's my decision, so there anyway. My mother called him while we were sitting together and he picked up the phone immediately. He wasn't on speaker yet, but as soon as he answered the call, the first thing that he asked about was whether I was all right or not, and that made me pretty emotional. I didn't allow my mother to answer, and I just said that I was fine and I wanted to talk to him. I then took the phone from my mom and he was quiet for a bit, but I told him that I was still processing things and I didn't know yet I had forgiven them, but I wanted to work through things, and if he kept second-guessing himself he wouldn't even be able to talk to me and we wouldn't be able to sort things out. Then, to my surprise, he literally started crying and completely broke down on the phone. He told me that he was really sorry about everything that had happened and he was crying. I could also see that my mother was trying to hide her tears across the table. I was feeling pretty emotional as well, but I decided that all three of us could not be crying at the same time, so I tried to keep calm and spoke to him. He told me that he regretted the way things turned out and he did not have any intention of hurting me, but he knew that both he and my mother had screwed up and they really wanted to make it up to me. I told him that I really needed some time away from them to sort things out inside my own head first, but I was willing to give our relationship a chance, and he told me that even that was a huge deal coming from me, and even said that he was willing to do anything to make things up to me now. So all three of us had a brief talk about all of this, and we decided that I would be staying with them for at least a week and a half during the holidays so we could all spend some time together as a family. We will also try to get therapy together since we definitely have some things to work out. My parents were already going to try marriage counseling, and now the four of us, including my sister, were also going to try family therapy together to sort things out. I'm going to have to go back to college after the break, so we're going to have to look for somebody who can have the sessions online, but we are definitely going to have to do this since I don't want my family to fall apart and turn into one of those families who never speak to each other and have no ties to one another anyway. That's what happened when I met with my mother, and I'm still trying to process everything that we have spoken about, but I feel considerably better and more hopeful about everything now. I'm keeping my fingers crossed things are going to work out in the future. Update 3. Hi, so it's been close to a year since I last posted. I finally graduated, and the good news is that I found a job within a few weeks of graduation. I am working now, and I am finally not miserable anymore because I don't have to study as well anymore. I can just focus on my work and come back home to my apartment and my roommate and then just chill for the evening. This is a nice life. I can get used to this. I know a lot of you are wondering about how things have turned out with my parents, since many of you have been skeptical about my decision to give my parents another chance to redeem themselves and make this family work again, and I'm quite happy about it because we went through therapy and we sorted things out, so things have been going well between us for now. My grandparents, as they had promised, covered my tuition for the last couple of months, and my sister also decided that she was going to accept the financial help that my parents were offering because after I told her how difficult it had been for me, I think she realized that it would be for the best, and to make it up to me, my parents have offered to cover my rent for a couple of months until I have saved up enough money for my income. I think it's really nice of them, and it's sweet that they're trying to make it up to me. Things are going great for now, and I honestly don't have any complaints. Thank you so much for checking in and caring about me. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Ex demanded child support for a kid that wasn't mine. Then she and my sister tried ruining my life when I asked for a paternity test. Some years ago, I dated a girl. The relationship was bad. She was very controlling and abusive. It ended up really bad, and we broke up. I kept going on with my life, and after some years I got a decent job, enough to solve all my needs, have a comfortable life, and make some savings. The thing is, a couple months after getting my job, my ex contacted me. She first asked me to talk. I believe that she may want to reconnect or something, but she showed up with a 5-year-old child, claiming he was my son and demanding child support. I didn't believe her, but the child's age matched the time since we cut contact. I got advice from a lawyer, a friend of mine, to try to solve this out of court. I offered to take responsibility, pay all the costs, and be an active part of the kid's life, only after making a DNA test. Everyone was okay with this except for my ex. She acted offended and demanded I just give her the money she deserved. She used all the excuses she could, even contacted my family to tell them I was trying to avoid taking responsibility for her child. When she ran out of excuses and the DNA test was finally made, surprise, I'm not the father. She was so mad with the result and cried about the money, saying it was unfair and she deserved it. But she didn't accomplish anything. Moving on to last week. There was a little party at my parents' house. My brother, a friend, and I were talking, and my brother started to joke about the situation with my ex. My friend and I started to joke about it, too. Some of our comments were a little dark and bad, but we were far away from the rest of the people. Literally, we were on the opposite side of the house and nobody else could hear us. At least that was what we thought. We were laughing like crazies when my sister appeared, very angry, and pushed me against the wall. She spied on us and heard our conversation, and she was really mad. She started to yell at us about how horrible we were for mocking a poor woman. A few hours later, when the party ended, she asked me to go to the kitchen with our parents, and she started to say how awful I was for the previous situation. Apparently, my ex had been in contact with her, and she believed her version. That was her way to have an intervention. My brother and I were like, "Are you serious?" When she started to say how I forced my ex into being a single mother and that I have the moral obligation to help her. My dad only said that we maybe were being too cruel making jokes of her, but that I wasn't responsible for that kid. My mom then surprised all of us when she said, "Even if the kid isn't yours, you are making more than enough money to support that child. You should have helped her." Since then, I've been receiving texts. My dad and my brother are on my side, saying I'm not responsible for her. But my sister is telling me how horrible I am for ruining their lives. My mom only said, "It's your decision, and I respect it. Just very disappointed that you ended up being so selfish. I'm aware that she doesn't deserve my money, and I'm not planning to give her any, but the constant harassment from my sister, trying to guilt me, is just exhausting." Date 1. It's been a while after my last post. I read all the comments and decided to show them to my mother. We had to talk about the situation again. She started on my ex's side, but after reading the post and all the comments and opinions, she realized she was wrong. I think the thing that hurt her the most was all the doubts about if she cheated on my dad and I wasn't his son, and if that was the reason she was on her side. We had a very long conversation. She told me that she believed my ex because she was always so nice and kind with her, that she decided not to believe me when I told her all the things she did to me during the relationship, because a good girl like her could never do something like that. So I must be lying. After that, she apologized to me. We are good now. On the other side, my sister. At first, she decided that she wouldn't talk to me until I take responsibility. But after some days, I talked with her. She is totally on her side, even after showing her everything. She said that none of that mattered because a woman's word goes first, and that's all the proof anyone could need. Also, she said that even if I'm not the biological father, I have an effective responsibility with her, so I must be man enough to take charge of them and start acting like a real man. She was a lost cause. About my ex, I did some research and found out that shortly after we broke up, she started dating another guy, or maybe she was cheating on me with him before. I'm not sure. They broke up some weeks later, and she had multiple dates until she found out she was pregnant. I also found that she had been trying to find a father for her kid for the last 2 years, and I was the next on the list. But looks like she is desperate now because she was never that aggressive with any other one before. Now, the reason for this post. Some days ago, my ex and my sister came to my workplace. They made a big sign with my face that says, "He abandoned his child and is an irresponsible father," and started a drama, saying all their intention was to shame me and use the social pressure to force me to take charge of them. They literally said it. To not make the story too long, they were taken out of the place. I got problems for that, even after showing all the proofs and legal documents that showed they were lying. I was warned that this better never happen again, or I'll be fired. After that, I contacted my friend, the lawyer, and we are now redacting a very long and detailed paper against them. My ex and my sister, too. They went too far. Now, I'm going against them with everything. Maybe that scared them enough to leave me alone. Update 2. Hi everyone, and sorry for the lack of news. Last week's had been crazy with a lot of stuff, but I think now is a good moment to update you all. First of all, I'm not allowed to talk a lot about the lawsuit. The most I can share with you is that my ex was extremely freaked out when she knew about it. She is now begging to drop it. She offered to take back everything she said, to never bother or even contact me again. She even tried to guilt me, saying that I would be ruining her and her son's life. But honestly, I don't care. I got tired of being the good guy a long time ago. She messed with me. Now I'm fighting back. As for my sister, the lawsuit at first only made her worse. As her attempt to shame me at my job didn't work as well as she wanted, she moved it to social media, spreading her BS about me abandoning my child or taking responsibility, and exposing my legal actions like acts of censorship and message control. But at the end, that will be worst for her. Not only because I can dismiss her defamation easily, but also because it's more evidence in our favor. Anyways, this is going to be a long road, and we are just beginning. Recently, we had a posada at my parents' home. Every year, we use this excuse to make a big family party before Christmas. I had my doubts because I didn't want my sister there, but after some relatives assured me that she wouldn't be, I decided to go. Big mistake, she was there. Mom decided that despite everything that happened, I was taking all this too far, so she wanted all of us to meet to solve this problem as a family. I tried to get out of there the moment I realized what she intended, but some relatives tried to stop me while my mom cried that I needed to stop, that I was tearing apart the family, and needed to learn to forgive and let go. I realized that despite everything, even knowing I was telling the truth, she was still on my sister's side. I got out of there, telling her that I'm not attending any family event again if my sister is there, and to never think of trying this BS again. At this point, almost all my family knows what my sister did. Some of them think she is crazy, some others think she is crazy but that I'm taking it too far. Couple days ago, Mom invited me to spend Christmas with them. I didn't want to go after what she did, but I decided to give her a chance after she swore it wouldn't happen again. But not only had she planned to do it again, my brother warned me that this time she intended to lock me in until I'd forgive my sister and stop the nonsense. I called my mom and told her I knew that I was done with her and my sister, so don't talk to me until she realizes she supported the wrong person and apologizes. I don't need to say how many times she tried to call me the following hours and all the drama she made when I didn't show up for Christmas. But again, I'm tired of being the good guy. So that's it for the moment. Hope you all had a nice Christmas. And I wish you a happy and drama-free New Year. Update 3. Hi to all that's still here. It's been a while, more than a year, and I think now is a good time to give an update about everything that happened with my life during the last year. Lots of things happened. Lots of things had changed. The lawsuit, to be short, we didn't get into trial, all got solved in conciliation meetings. My lawyer's strategy was to add all the things we could think of, from the harassment, the defamation, to the attempts to put my job at risk, parental fraud, everything. The idea was to scare the hell out of them, and if that didn't work, there would be lots of charges against my ex and my sister. My sister kept calling it a bluff and kept posting all her BS on social media. Things she regrets now, as every single word she posted against me came back to bite her when it was used as proof. My ex took back everything she said, asked for forgiveness after seeing that she would lose a lot. So she ended up accepting to compensate the damages out of court and left my sister alone in a battle she started. When my sister realized how big things really were, that she was alone now and would lose, she freaked out, deleted every single post, tried to pretend she never did what she did. But at that point, we had all the backups, screenshots, and recordings we needed. On the last conciliation meeting, she broke down crying, begging me to forgive her and to not do this to her. But she did this to herself. She had multiple chances to stop but kept pushing and ended up facing the consequences of her own stupidity. She had to pay me a good amount plus all the legal costs. My mother helped her pay, but now she has a considerable debt, as my dad demanded her to pay them back over time. For a few months, she resented me for what I did, but we ended up talking and getting back on good terms. Our relationship is damaged but healing. She confessed that at the beginning, she felt she was fighting for a good reason, for a cause she believed in, to defend a poor woman in need. She believed she was doing the right thing, so she was sure she had to win. At the end, those ideas were supported by her friends. As she said, those girls were encouraging her to fight, to face me and make me fulfill my obligations, that she was fighting in the name of other women. Those ideas kept on her mind until things got too real, when she saw there was no way she would win. Then all those girls disappeared. My ex left her alone. All the ones who gave her support wished her luck and went away, so she had no other choice but to surrender. So that's how things ended with them. And for the ones who suspected, no, my sister and my ex weren't in a relationship. I don't know where my ex is, and I don't care. She paid and disappeared, and I hope to never see her again. Some people had told me I went too far with her. Even some called me a monster for ruining a single mother who already was in troubles. And some had said I'm not loyal to my family for taking this issue far instead of solving it inside the family. At this point, I don't care anymore. My mother. For the months the conciliation lasted, my mom went on my sister's side multiple times. She tried to convince me to stop, from asking me to just let it go, to trying to guilt me for everything she could think of. She even threatened me, to disown me, to say she would not see me as a son anymore, to separate me from the family. But at the end, she couldn't, and was, and still is, resented for all those months. After all was over, one kept asking myself, why does she do this? Why does she just keep treating me like this, putting everyone else aside except mine? So after reading multiple people saying to do this, I finally got to do the DNA test. After talking about it with my brother and dad, all agreed it was too rare my mom acted like this. And because of everything my mom said and implied, my dad had more and more doubts to the point he was sure she did something. After some beers, a very hard talk, some tears, and the promise that no matter what the result says, to me and my bro, he will always be our dad, we made the DNA test. Both of us are his sons. My dad was so relieved but then very embarrassed for having doubts of his wife's loyalty. He felt very ashamed. So we ended up apologizing to her for what we did. As I started the talk of the DNA test, I asked to be the first to talk and apologize to her. That night, all of us gathered at my dad's house. We sat around the table, and I started by recognizing all the fights and tension we had over the months and apologizing for it, because after all, she is my mother. But her behavior made us all wonder and have lots of doubts about why she was being like this, so I suggested I'd make a DNA test right after saying that. My mom went livid, and half a second later, her face went red. She got up from the chair and threw herself at me, pulling my hair, scratching, and hitting me, screaming, "Why did you do this? I hate you. You had no right." My father and my brother separated her from me. She immediately started to ask for forgiveness to my dad. My dad was surprised and furious when he told her that I was about to apologize to her because the results said we were his sons. Her face was a mix of fear and desperation. Her reaction told us everything. I never saw my dad so angry. She confessed that long ago, she had an affair for a long time until she got pregnant with me. She never knew if she got pregnant by my dad or by her lover, as they rarely used condoms, and she multiple times let him finish inside. All these years, she had the doubt about who was my real father, and she pretended to take this secret to the grave. But now she exposed herself, and now all made sense. That was the reason she always treated me like this. That's why she always put everyone else's word before mine. Dad threw her out that night, and in very little time all the family knew about it. We warned them in case she tried to set any lies, something she hated, as she called us, saying we had no right to set anything, that she is our mother, and we can't say anything against her. The aftermath. So to conclude this craziness, I won a good amount of money. My brother is still my best friend. My relationship with my sister is damaged but healing, and she's separated from her toxic and misandrist friends. My ex is gone. I hope forever this time. Dad is hurt. Mom revealed to be a cheater, but they're not divorcing. She is back at my dad's home, but he hasn't forgiven her, and for what he said, he never will. But he doesn't want to go through a divorce or give her anything he has worked for. In his words, they're married, but they're not a couple. And of course, my mom now openly hates me because, to her, I'm the cause of all her problems. In her words, if you had done what I said and took charge of the kid, none of this would have happened. I hope you're happy now. And that's it. Sorry for the text wall. Hope you all had a good 2023, and also wish you a good 2024. I will keep working, saving, and trying to build a life away from this madness. I'll probably cut contact with my mom, but I don't care at this point anymore. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Wife cheated with my business partner and left me for him, then tried crawling back crying when he dumped her. My ex-wife Kathy, 38F, and I, 38M, had been together for 19 years, married for 16. We also had a 14-year-old daughter together, but she left it all almost 6 months ago to be with my work partner, ex-work partner to be precise, since he sold his shares and left the business after I discovered the affair. Leon, the guy I used to run the business with, was my coworker earlier, and we became very good friends, which is why we decided to quit our jobs and start the company together. We had been working together for the past 5 years, and he had been having an affair with my wife for 3 of those years. I found out about it almost 6 months back because of some text that I found on my wife's phone. When I confronted her about it, she did not even bother to deny it and just accepted all of it. She told me that she was sick and tired of hiding things like this, when all she wanted to do was just leave. I was devastated because I had no idea that she was unhappy in our marriage, and I was willing to do anything to fix that. So the day that I confronted her and she said that she was leaving, I even told her that we could still make this work, and that was pretty stupid of me, but I was desperate. But she just started getting annoyed with me and said that the only reason she had even married me in the first place was because she got pregnant and she didn't want to be on her own. She had tried to love me for the past 16 years, but it hadn't worked out, and now she had found someone that she actually loved. She wasn't going to let me hold her back and said that now that I had found out about the affair and her secret was out, I had to suck it up and let it go. I was really heartbroken, more so for the sake of our daughter, but she didn't even think twice before leaving. She filed for a divorce, and the petition was relatively simple. She just wanted to leave, and she didn't even demand any sort of settlement or alimony from me, and the division of assets was pretty fair. So within a couple of months we were able to finalize the divorce because I came to my senses after a while and realized that after what had happened, I would never be able to make it work with her. After we had filed for the divorce, I confronted Leon as well, and he just apologized and told me that he had wanted to tell me about it a long time back but did not know how to come clean to me. Within a couple of weeks, he had resigned and told me that he and Kathy would be moving away because they didn't want to create any more trouble for me than they already had. Also, Kathy had been offered a pretty amazing job in Boston, and his cousin also lived in Boston so he could just work with his cousin instead, and it had already been sorted out. He put this all in an email, and after that we never spoke to each other again, and the last time that I saw Kathy was 2 months ago, the day that our divorce was finalized. Since then, I hadn't heard from either of them, and things were tough for me and my daughter, but we were getting through it somehow. At least I still had my business to run, and that was keeping me busy because no matter what, I wanted to be able to give my daughter the kind of future that she wanted. But around 1 week ago, Kathy showed up again, and I'm still kind of confused about whether my daughter and I did the right thing or not. So 1 week ago, around 11 o'clock-ish in the evening, somebody frantically started ringing our doorbell and knocking relentlessly. My daughter was already in bed by then, and I was just finishing up some work in my office when that happened. So both of us rushed to the door to check, and through the window we saw that it was Kathy. My daughter asked me not to open the door because so far she has been very upset with her mother since even though she has partial custody, Kathy has made no effort to keep in touch with our daughter, and also the fact that she cheated on me doesn't sit right with my daughter either. So I would say that they have a pretty bad relationship at the moment. But I knew that if Kathy had shown up at my door at such a time, it must be about something important, and I opened the door to let her in. Instead of coming in though, she just started yelling at me from the doorstep and said that she was going to file a lawsuit against me and make sure that this went to court, and she got whatever she was owed because she couldn't believe that I had chosen to punish her so cruelly. For the first couple of seconds, I had no idea what she was talking about, and I had to ask her to slow down and elaborate because I was so confused. She was still pretty pissed and said that there was no need for me to pretend not to know because she was pretty sure that I had hidden the real nature of Leon from her because I wanted to punish her for cheating. She then pulled up the sleeve of her shirt and showed me a spot on her arm with a band-aid on it. I was able to figure out that Leon must have done something, and it came as a shock to me as well because we had worked together for several years, but he had never even lost his cool in front of me. Kathy told me that for the past couple of weeks, ever since they had moved to Boston, they had been fighting a lot, and nothing had stayed the same after their move. She had figured out that it was just because Lion was still trying to adjust to this new life. But even after spending 1 full month there, he was acting like this was all Kathy's fault. Apparently, he kept accusing her of ruining his life because he had to leave the business that he had worked so hard on. And here he had to work with his cousin who constantly kept undermining him. And he blamed Kathy for all of this because she was the one who had revealed the affair to me before he was ready, and he had to move all the way here for her job so he couldn't fight for the business either. They had been fighting every night, and the night before she came to our doorstep, he got really mad and threw a vase at her, and she tried to dodge it, but it still hit her arm and she got cut. So far he had only been verbally abusing her, but this time things had gone too far, and she had left the house that night and taken the next flight here so she could speak to me about this. She told me that Lion hadn't even bothered to contact her or apologize to her after she left, and she said that she was holding me responsible for this because she believed that I had known all about his abusive behavior but I had hidden it from her because I wanted to punish her. And she thought that it was really cruel of me to do so because apparently she had done me a favor by not fighting for anything during the divorce, and I couldn't even have her back and make sure that she was safe. It was just really stupid because, like I said, I had worked with Lon for a really long time and I knew him well, but that was all in a professional capacity, and in the workplace he was a very different guy. I had never dated him and had only occasionally met the women he had dated in the past, so there was really no way that I could have known about this side of him. So her accusations that I had hidden all of this on purpose, it didn't make any sense to me, and I felt pretty annoyed by how she was acting like I owe this to her or something. I tried to explain to her that I had no idea about any of this and said that I was really sorry that this was happening to her. But ultimately it was her own fault, and she could threaten me with lawsuits all she wanted, but she knew that this was not my fault. She just kept arguing with me, insisting that I knew about all of this, and she is now going to make sure that she fights for everything that she didn't during our divorce. My daughter had been standing by the door all this while, and I had pretty much forgotten about her because I was so caught up in the argument, but once we started talking in circles, she interrupted Kathy and told her to go away. I was a bit surprised because I didn't think she was going to interrupt, and I think even Kathy was caught off guard. But then Kathy told her to shut up and stay out of this because she wasn't even old enough to know what this was about and told her to go to bed. But my daughter refused. She stayed there and said that Kathy had no right to speak to me this way, especially after everything that she had put me through. She told her that for the last couple of months, ever since I had found out that she had cheated, I had been heartbroken, and she the selfish and heartless monster that she is just simply moved on with her life. She then reminded her mother that she had not even come to visit her own daughter or even bother to keep in touch with her because she was so busy with Leon and her new life. My daughter told Kathy that she had failed at being a good wife and she had failed at being a mother as well. So she had absolutely no business standing there and acting like she was the victim in the situation that she had created for herself. My daughter is just 14, but hearing her say those words really put into perspective how much she had grown up because of the divorce. Kathy literally had nothing to say because she was speechless at our daughter's words, and then my daughter finally said that now that Kathy had left and she was with Leon, she would just have to deal with whatever she was going through on her own because we were no longer her family anymore. She had dug her grave and she had to lie in it because that would be exactly what she deserved for screwing people over. Once she had said that, my daughter slammed the door in Kathy's face and went back to her room. I could hear Kathy crying outside the door, but I didn't bother to check up on her because I didn't think it was necessary after the discussion we had just had. So I also went back to bed and tried not to think about it for the next couple of days and kept myself busy at work. I was very proud of my daughter for standing up for me and not letting me fall weak in front of Kathy. Things were going pretty well after that visit, but 3 days back Kathy showed up once again, and this time she had shown up with a lawyer to demand full custody of our daughter. Luckily, our daughter was out with a couple of her friends at the time when she visited in the evening, so I haven't told her anything about this yet. But I was incredibly pissed off when she showed up and said that after our daughter had spoken to her in that way the last time that we met, she had decided that there was no way she was going to allow her to live with me anymore. She told me that apparently the real reason she had not tried to keep in touch with our daughter after I found out about the affair was that she did not want to get involved in a drawn-out custody battle and disrupt my life even more than she already had, which is why she wanted to leave quietly, and she didn't even try to keep in touch with our daughter because she knew that I was upset about what was going on, and her keeping in touch with our daughter might have made things worse. So she was basically trying to tell me that she had done all of this for my sake, not just because she wanted to leave without any responsibilities. I was obviously not buying any of that, and I told her that I knew that the only reason she did not fight for anything during the divorce, let alone custody of our daughter, was because she wanted to move away as quickly as she could and start a new life with Lon. This had nothing to do with me like she was trying to make it seem, so I really didn't need to feel bad for her. But she said that she didn't care about that anymore because now she wanted full custody of her daughter, and she was going to make sure that she got it because she was not going to allow me to ruin my daughter's perception of her by feeding her nonsensical stories and teaching her to disrespect her mother. She claimed that apparently the last time that we met, our daughter had been incredibly disrespectful to her, and instead of reminding her, I was encouraging that behavior, so now she knew what to do, and she had come back to inform me that she would be taking this to court. I told her to be my guest and shut the door because I really didn't want to speak to her anymore and waste my time. But now I'm starting to think about whether she has a point or not. I want to believe that I'm doing the right thing, but as of now I'm not sure of anything, to be honest. So Aita for not reprimanding my daughter when she was rude to her mother. My ex-wife. Update 1. I have decided that I have nothing to be sorry about. My daughter did exactly the right thing by standing up for me, and the comments made me realize just how stupid I was being. She literally cheated on me. I don't think I have to have any sympathy or any kind of regret about what has happened to her. And many people in the comments even told me that I had to speak to my daughter about this beforehand, since it would not be fair for her to be caught off guard in case Kathy files for full custody even after the last meeting. So I spoke to my daughter about it yesterday, and I told her everything. I did not want to keep secrets from her. She has already proved to me that she is mature enough to handle these things, and I do feel kind of bad that she had to grow up overnight, but at least now I can prepare her for the future. So far we have not received any word from Kathy, but we are guessing that we are going to hear from her soon. Our daughter is 14, and that's old enough for her to count in court. Given that this even goes to court, if we are able to settle during mediation, that's going to be better. But just in case, I have still made sure that she really wants to stay with me, and obviously she does. She has made it abundantly clear to me that she wants nothing to do with Kathy. Not right now, at least. She told me that in the future she might consider reconnecting with Kathy and building a relationship with her again. But right now everything is just too recent. She obviously blames her mother for breaking up the family, and I can't say anything because technically it's true. I don't want to be the kind of father who turns his kid against his ex-partner just to be petty. But in this situation I don't think there is much that I can do. I think Kathy did the job pretty well herself since our daughter really wants to keep her distance from her own mother, and they used to be pretty close before the affair came to light. So this is a huge change from what they were both used to. Obviously Kathy is upset that my daughter is on my side here since she has always tried to be closer to her. Speaking of which, some of you wanted to know who exactly had told our daughter about the affair. So it was not me, it was Kathy herself, and she had confessed about it in an email to our daughter a couple of days after she had moved out without even bothering to ask me if I wanted that. My daughter was very upset when she found out, and in spite of that she still wanted to speak to her mother just once. But Kathy was the one who refused back then. When I tried to contact her to tell her that our daughter wanted to speak to her and discuss these things, she said that she did not want to speak to our daughter about it because she was much too busy with the divorce proceedings, and also she did not think it was appropriate to be discussed. She had said whatever she wanted to say in that email itself, and she had nothing more to add. I tried to convince her to talk to our daughter just once because she seemed to have a lot of questions, but Kathy was very firm about her decision. After that, she stopped speaking to us at all, so my daughter's perception of her mother changed completely, and I don't think that it's fair for Kathy to hold me responsible for all of that. Anyway, I have spoken to my lawyer and we are going to deal with this. Update 2. So a couple of days back I was finally served with the notice for full custody by Kathy, and my lawyer and I immediately responded to it by contesting it. We are going to meet with the court-appointed mediator tomorrow, but before that Leon called me up today. I was quite surprised to see him calling because it was not like we had anything to talk about, but I still answered the call, and as soon as I did that he told me that he wanted me to send Kathy back to him. He said that he had been trying to get through to her for the past couple of days, and he knew that she must have been with me or at least spoken to me, and he wanted me to tell her where she was. I told him that I had no idea where she was living, but I had indeed spoken to her in the past couple of days and she was here to fight for custody of our daughter. I did not do this to help Lon, just to be clear, but I did this because I thought that maybe if Lon came by and spoke to Kathy then he could change her mind and get her to go back. If I was lucky, maybe he would even be able to convince her to sign away her rights over our daughter. So with that in mind I told him everything, and I also added that she was pretty distraught by the fact that he had not bothered to contact her after she had left that night, and if he wanted her back then he should make a move quickly. The poor guy did not even suspect anything and he had no idea that he was being manipulated, so that worked out pretty well for me. I'm just hoping that Kathy still wants to make it work with him, and when he comes by she might go back with him. I told my lawyer about this plan as well, and even he thinks that what I did was the right thing to do because even though the scales are tilted in our favor already, it doesn't hurt to save time and energy and just get this over with before this goes to court or whatever. Update 3. Hey, so Kathy and I met for our first mediation session 2 days ago, and of course it did not go well. She did not agree with any of our statements and claimed that it was all a waste of time before terminating the session within half an hour. After she left, I went back home after picking up my daughter from school, and once we got back Leon was waiting for us at our doorstep. The poor guy looked like he was in a really bad state, and I can imagine him being in that condition after spending a couple of months with Kathy. Anyway, I told him that he had to leave because my daughter and I had just come back home and we wanted to relax. We did not have time to deal with this drama and I had already helped him however I could. I was not able to go out of my way to help the guy who had been having an affair with my wife, but he literally broke down and said that after their last fight she had not even bothered to reply to any of his texts, and he had no idea where to look for her. So I told him just like last time I still had no idea where she was living, and there was no way that I could help him. He just sat down on the porch steps and started crying with his head in his hands, and at that point I started getting kind of annoyed because this guy and Kathy had literally ruined my life and now he felt comfortable enough to ask me to help him find the woman so they could sort things out. I told my daughter to go inside so I could deal with this, and once she was inside I told Leon that he had to go because I was simply done with both of them for good measure. I gave him Kathy's parents' contact info and told him to get in touch with them if he couldn't get through to Kathy, but he had to leave us alone now. I told him that he had ruined my life along with Kathy. I didn't want to see him lurking around ever again. He tried to apologize to me and said that he really didn't mean to hurt me, but he had fallen in love with her and he couldn't help it. But I didn't want to hear it. So I just didn't say anything and so he left. I'm just so exhausted and confused all the time that I don't even know what I'm doing with my life right now. I am really hoping and praying that Leon and Kathy are able to make things right for my sake if not theirs. Because if they are, it's likely that they are going to leave me and my daughter alone and I will finally be allowed to move on with my life. At this point, I don't even know what's going on and how I should feel about anything. I'm just numb for the most part and can't wait for this to come to an end. Update 4. Hello, so a couple of days ago, Kathy terminated our mediation sessions and said that she wanted our situation to go to court. That would not end well for her, and we all knew that, but I guess she wasn't in denial until now. Anyway, she visited me a couple of hours ago with Lon. I guess they were able to patch things up. I did not invite them in because my daughter was home and she was kind of sick, so I didn't want to make that worse for her. So I told them to wait for me in a nearby cafe, got my mother to come by to take care of my daughter, and then headed to the same cafe so we could talk things out. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Fiancé ghosted me on our wedding day to run off with his ex. Then moved in with my parents, who are now calling him the son they never had. I, 25F, was supposed to get married to Frank, 26M, about 2 months ago. Frank, not his real name, was my boyfriend for 2 years. We met at a wedding and got together within a few weeks since we were quite similar. Frank and I had been in a relationship for 1 year, and then he moved into my apartment. Everything was going well. He proposed to me last year, and we were supposed to be married by now, but he ran away on the morning of our wedding day. It was the worst day of my life, and I didn't even find out where he was until a week later, when he finally reached out to me and told me that he was back together with his ex. It was obviously heartbreaking for me to find out about it through a text. I blocked him after I told him that he would be the one who had to pay off all the wedding expenses. He agreed and apologized to me for betraying me, but that really didn't mean anything to me. He threw away our relationship to be with his ex, and that's all that mattered to me. I didn't care about his apology or how bad he felt doing it. I was very depressed and had to go back to therapy to process my emotions because I was struggling on my own. That's how bad things were. I could barely even get out of bed on most days, and things were spiraling out of my control. It's been 2 months since then, and I'm finally doing a lot better now. Then Frank showed up again to try and get back with me. Some context about Frank and his ex, Hannah, 26F. They were together throughout high school and were even supposed to go to college together, but Frank got a better opportunity somewhere else, and he ended up going to a different college. They tried to make it work, but the long-distance thing got to them, and they broke up in their second year because it was all getting too much for them to handle. He had been transparent with me about all his past relationships, and I really appreciated that. He told me that Hannah was his only serious relationship before me, and everything else was just short-lived flings or hookups that didn't matter. He and Hannah had been together for almost 6 years before they broke up, and that was a long time. She was his high school sweetheart, so I did ask him once if he had moved on from her entirely, and he had told me that he had, and he knew that she had married somebody else a few years after they graduated anyway, so it didn't matter. It wasn't exactly a perfect answer to my question, but it was satisfactory, so I didn't ask about it anymore. I knew that he and Hannah were in the past, so I wasn't too worried. Besides, I had stalked Hannah online and she lived in a different state with her husband and 2 kids, so she wasn't exactly a threat to my relationship. He never brought up Hannah, so I never thought that he still had feelings for her. There were no signs of him wanting to end our relationship and go back to Hannah, even in the days leading up to the wedding. He put up an Oscar-worthy performance, I have to give him that. Not even for a second did I think that he had any plans to run away and ghost me on the morning of the wedding. So it came as a huge shock to me when he didn't show up and even his phone was switched off. On checking his room, we realized that all his belongings were gone and he was nowhere to be found. He and his best man were missing from the wedding for hours, and after the first few hours I realized that he was not coming back, so I could wait for as long as I wanted to, but there was no point. Towards the evening, his best man finally showed up, but when I asked him about Frank, he informed me that the wedding was off. He told me that he wasn't allowed to reveal where Frank was, but he told me that he wanted me to know that he was sorry that it had to end this way. However, he had no choice. His family was really apologetic, but mine wasn't that supportive. They didn't say anything to me on the day of the wedding because I was inconsolable. But after that, my parents told me that I should have kept tabs on Frank to make sure he didn't get cold feet and run away like he did. They said that what happened at the wedding was extremely embarrassing for them, and they were deeply ashamed of this incident, as if this was somehow my fault. I didn't talk to them for the next few weeks because I thought that they were being insensitive. However, they did reach out to me and apologize after they found out the real reason why Frank left. I had told my sister about the message that Frank had sent about him getting back together with Hannah, and she was the one who had told my parents. So when they found out about her, they realized that it wasn't my fault for not being conscious enough of Frank's feelings and apologized to me. My parents have always been very conscious of their image, and that's what matters to them the most. Their reputation among their friends and how they are perceived by their peers. They are quite pretentious and put their reputation above everything else, and I think that's quite evident from whatever I just said about them. The only reason I have even kept in touch with them is because they're loaded and often help me out whenever I have money problems. Also, my sister practically worships the ground they walk on, so if I cut them off, she'll be mad at me, and I like her, so I don't want that. Anyway, Frank came back about a week ago and showed up at my house to surprise me. I had forgotten to get the locks changed after he left, so he still had a spare set of keys, which he used to get inside my house, and he waited for me there until I got back from work. It was creepy and psychotic of him to do that, but he said that he meant for it to be romantic. I was met with a very nasty shock when I came back from work, but it only got worse when Frank told me that he was here to apologize to me and get back together. Apparently, he had made a mistake by going back to Hannah because she was a scammer. He told me that Hannah had contacted him about a week before the wedding and sent him an email confessing her love for him and saying that she had to give it one last shot before he got married. She had got to know the news of his engagement and his wedding day from a couple of their friends from school, and she had even said that her original plan was to show up at the wedding itself, but she couldn't do that since she had 2 kids to take care of. She had mentioned that she was getting divorced from her husband, and this felt like a sign from the universe to finally own up to her feelings and go back to the one man that she had ever truly loved. So that email was her way of confessing, and she gave him her address and phone number so he could contact her if he wanted to leave me. I know all this because Frank forwarded the email to me to prove that he had been manipulated by her. However, once Frank got there, he realized that Hannah wasn't getting divorced at all, and over the course of the next few weeks, he got to know that she had been lying about everything. He did some digging and found out that she and her husband were just broke, and she was probably planning to scam him because she kept asking him to help her by paying for her divorce attorney. He said that he had come back here a couple of weeks ago but was too ashamed to face me. He told me that it hadn't been an easy decision for him, but in the last week leading up to the day of our wedding, he realized that he still hadn't completely moved on from her since he was actually considering going back, and apparently he didn't want me to suffer because of his incapability to forget his past. He told me that he wanted to tell me the truth, break things off like a decent guy, and then go back to Hannah, but he couldn't bring himself to do it because that would lead to a lot of fighting and drama and tears, and he just didn't want that. So to avoid that for himself, he just took off on the day of our wedding and abandoned me without a word, and he believed that this was a good explanation and I would obviously understand and forgive him. He really didn't see it coming when, after hearing him out, I told him to get out of my house or I would call the cops on him. He actually had the audacity to be shocked when I told him that I wanted him to get out and that I never wanted to speak to him ever again. He tried to come close to me and calm me down, but I pushed him away and took out my phone to show him that I was serious about this threat. He had lost every right to speak to me or to even breathe the same air as me, and I just wanted him out. After some arguing, he told me that he would leave, but he knew that I was just mad because I had missed him and he would be back soon whenever I was ready to talk. It was ridiculous that he even expected me to entertain his BS, and it was infuriating to know that he believed that I would take him back eventually. I didn't tell anybody about this for the next couple of days, but then my parents called me to talk to me about Frank, and they told me that Frank had approached them after his meeting with me didn't go as planned. My parents were obviously all for the idea of us getting back together because that meant that we could finally get married and they could save face among their peers. On the phone call, they told me that they could understand that I was very upset with Frank, but I needed to look at the bigger picture and take him back because it wasn't worth it to let go of such a beautiful relationship over a stupid mistake. They tried to defend Frank by saying that he was a guy, and men are bound to make stupid mistakes, but as his girlfriend and future wife, I should forgive him and not let one mistake negate all the good things about our relationship. Besides, Hannah was not even in the picture anymore, and if anything, his interaction with her made him realize how great he had it with me. So now was a better time than ever to get back together and get married to make sure that he doesn't ever even think of straying from this relationship. My mother even brought up a couple of past affairs that my dad had and said that she had always forgiven him because apart from the occasional cheating, he was a really good husband. I could hardly even believe that she was saying that out loud and still didn't hear how insanely stupid she sounded. I told my parents that I was not taking him back and I was definitely not getting married to him, so they could save their breath because their sermons weren't going to make me change my mind. They tried to fight me on it and told me that it had been really difficult for them to face their friends after my wedding day. They had become the laughingstock of their social circle, but it would really shut everyone up if they concocted some story and made it seem like the wedding didn't happen because of some medical reason like an accident or something that we didn't discuss that day, and it would make all their friends regret treating that incident like a joke. They said that Frank hadn't learned his lesson and there was no need for me to continue punishing him because he had already been through enough, so I needed to be a little forgiving and take him back. They also wanted me to think about their image and go through with the wedding for their sake. I told them that they were acting crazy and it was downright psychotic of them to expect me to take back a cheater and even get married to him just so they can save face among their friends who don't even matter. They're all pretentious and awful rich people who live for drama and gossip, and I don't feel the need to put myself through so much just to win them over. But my parents flipped out and started accusing me of being selfish when I said that I wouldn't take Frank back or get married to him. They think that I should just suck it up and do it because it's really not a big deal and it'll be mature of me to handle this with grace by forgiving him and going through with the wedding. It was getting tiring after a while, so I finally decided to cut them off by blocking them because I couldn't deal with this anymore, and even that didn't work because they continued to text me and bother me with different phone numbers trying to get me to do what they wanted me to do. I finally got really sick of it yesterday, and I did something bad. I was already really tired from a long day at work, and my parents were still blowing up my phone with texts. So I decided to take screenshots of those and logged into my mother's Facebook account. I have known the password for a long time because my mom uses the same password for everything, and I got in on my first try. Then I typed out a huge paragraph about what they had been putting me through and how they had been harassing me nonstop ever since Frank came back. I attached the screenshots as proof, and then I posted it and tagged all their so-called friends as a finishing touch. Then I took a nap and didn't wake up until midnight because my phone was on silent, and I didn't hear any notifications, so they could continue to call and text me, but it wouldn't matter because I just wouldn't see any of it. When I finally woke up, I saw about 1,000 messages from my parents and several missed calls. All of them were about the posts that I had made, and they were naturally extremely upset. They had taken it down within an hour of it being posted, but it didn't matter because loads of people had seen that post, and now they were all calling them out on social media, and it was just a complete mess for them. I already mentioned that most of the people that my parents were friends with live for drama, and I had handed them exactly what they wanted. Yet another opportunity to speak badly of my parents on a silver platter, and so they were really going all out. I felt kind of guilty afterward because I could see that my parents were really upset and desperate. Many of my family members had also told me that they could understand that I was frustrated, but airing dirty laundry in public was never the solution to anything, and this just made matters worse, and now I don't know what to think because I feel like I might have taken things a bit too far. ITA for posting that my parents were trying to convince me to take back my cheating fiancé and get married just so their friends wouldn't mock them? Update 1. Thanks for all the love on my post, you guys. It means the world to me, and I really needed to feel good about myself after the week that I've just been through. My parents said, "Suck, that's the bottom line," and I had tried to stay in touch with them because they are old and I need to be a good daughter, but all they care about is appearances and their reputation. They don't care about feelings or what's real, and there is really nothing in the world that is important enough for me to make me stay with them. My sister has cut me off after that post, and I feel kind of bad about it, but I did see this coming, and it's nothing unexpected. If she wants to worship them even though they're terrible human beings, she can continue doing so, but it's stupid to expect that I won't stand up against them just because she's devoted to them. It's sad, but hopefully, she'll be disillusioned soon enough, maybe after something like this happens to her as well. I hope it doesn't, but it's for the best if it does and she finally sees them for what they really are: shallow and pretentious jerks. Frank also hasn't tried to contact me after that post, so I think he has given up, but I won't be surprised if he pops up out of nowhere after the hue and cry about my post dies down. My parents tried to talk to me and get me to apologize publicly for a few days after I made that post, but when I told them that I would report them for cyber harassment, I honestly don't even know if that's a real thing, but I had to say something to get them off my back if texted or called me ever again, and that finally made them back down. So it's been pretty silent since that post, and I really don't regret it anymore. Clearly, some good came out of it, and I was able to get rid of all the drama queens in my life. Hopefully, things will remain peaceful now, but these people are shameless, so they might come back for round 2. I just have to stay sharp and mentally prepare myself for that. Update 2. Hi. 6 days have passed since the last update, and I learned recently that Frank has actually moved in with my parents. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. They're disgusting, and this is exactly what I expected of them. I hate them with my life, and I wish I could do something to mess them up, but I just have to suck it up and let things be right now. I've done enough already, and I don't want more trouble. It was my neighbor who told me that Frank was living with my parents now. She and I grew up together, and she knew all about what was going on with me. We are not friends, but we do talk to each other from time to time and catch up occasionally. So she told me that when she saw Frank move in with my parents a couple of days ago, she felt that it was her moral duty to let me know because she had witnessed the post in the aftermath of it, and she had also been present at my wedding. She told me that she wished she could do something to help, but she had already done enough for me. I honestly don't know what to do right now because I really and truly am disgusted by the idea of Frank living with my parents, as if he is a replacement for me or something equally demented. I really want to do something that will shake them, but I just don't know what. I could post about this again, but that wouldn't even lead anywhere, just like the last time, and I don't want more drama. I just freaking hate whatever is happening right now. I feel sick to my stomach at any given moment, and I could really just barf thinking about all of them living under one roof and having a gay old time talking about me. I feel like crying, but even that isn't going to solve anything. I'm just so helpless right now. I have nobody to talk to about this because of how personal and embarrassing it is. It just hurts even more because I know that no matter what I do, I'll continue to feel this way, and it won't affect them in the slightest. Update 3. Hi. So Frank texted me from a burner account on Instagram today. It's been almost a week since I received the news that he had moved in with my parents from my neighbor, and today he finally had the decency to text me and tell me about it. He said that he was really sorry to spring this on me, but he had nowhere to go and he couldn't live in a hotel room forever because it was too expensive. So until he found a place of his own, he would have to live with my parents. They were apparently pretty happy to have him. His own parents did not want to speak to him or have anything to do with him after the debacle at the wedding, and I had very clearly told him to get out when he came back to me, so our apartment was out of the question as well. The only people that he could approach were my parents. He had heard about the post that I had made from my mother's account and knew that my parents were pressuring me to take him back. So he also knew that they liked him and would take him in readily. I could almost kick myself knowing that I had made this possible and that post had really backfired badly. I told him that he could go to hell for all I cared, and if he were living with my parents, that he probably was already there. I wanted to leave it at that, but my anger got the better of me, and I ended up sending him a long text about how he was miserable and pathetic for going to his ex-fiancée's parents because he had no other place to go since nobody loves him anymore. I said a lot of other mean things, really tore him a new one, and got it all off my chest. I didn't want to speak to him ever again or hear from him, and I wanted to make sure that he got that message loud and clear. I guess the last time that I told him to get out of my house wasn't enough for him, and he wanted to mess with me even more, which is why he texted me and was acting all innocent and sweet, as if I would buy it. Lucky for me, I can see through his act now, and I know exactly what sort of scum he is, so he isn't fooling anyone. Update 4. Hi everybody. I know I've been missing for a really long time, but I was really caught up at work, new projects and all that jazz. So I didn't have time to check Reddit, but now that I am here, it's time for another short update. It has been almost 2 weeks since my last update, and not much has changed in terms of Frank and his living situation. He is still very much living with my parents, and they're making quite a big deal out of it. From what I know, they have been posting pictures with Frank and calling him their son. The son that they never had, to be more precise, and they keep thanking a certain someone for bringing such a wonderful young man into their lives, and have mentioned how it was a great deal for them because they got rid of the garbage and found gold in the form of Frank, their almost son. It would actually be pretty hilarious if it wasn't so annoying. I can't stand to hear about it and have told everyone to stop telling me about it because it really creeps me out. They are treating Frank like their own son in my replacement, and I don't know why, but it just gives me the creeps. There is definitely some mental illness there that I don't even want to get into. It's disgusting and I don't want to talk about it anymore, But that's how my family is, and it's sad. But I am related to them, so I have to hear about it from everyone, even people who aren't related to us, like my parents' friends. Ever since that post, their friends have been trying to chat me up for more gossip because they think that the enemy of an enemy is a friend. I guess that's what happens when people are too rich and entitled and also have a lot of time on their hands. That's definitely the case with my parents and the group of people that they used to hang out with. None of them cared about each other and definitely are not friends if they're so keen to gossip about my parents. I have been ignoring them and blocking them, but they keep popping up and texting me out of nowhere. All of them first try to sympathize with me and console me by telling me that they know my parents and that they have always been slightly pretentious so they can understand what I'm going through. I want to scream at them and tell them that being treated badly by your parents is not the same thing as having annoying friends. So they don't have any idea what I have been through, and I'm definitely not going to reach out to them for help or when I need someone to talk to because I hardly even know them, and I can obviously tell that they're just reaching out to me because they want to know more about my parents' crazy behavior and gossip about them. It's so annoying, and I wish that my parents hadn't been so popular in their social group, but everything comes at a cost, and I did get back at them, but this is the cost that I had to pay for it. This and the fact that Frank is living with them and I have to deal with it. Update 5. Hey guys, it's been a long time, but I honestly just didn't have anything to share for a while. 6 months have passed now since the day of my wedding, which never took place, and every single day I thank God for not letting it happen. My parents and Frank are still living together. I know that's what most of you people would want to know in this update, but I really don't have a problem with that anymore. They deserve each other, and I couldn't be happier for them. Frank and my sister are actually getting married in a couple of months, and I received an invitation today, which is how I was reminded of that crazy period of my life from a couple of months ago. It was difficult, but I did go to therapy and tried my best to work things out for myself, and then I got a great job offer, but I had to move for it, so I readily agreed to it because there would be nothing better for me than a fresh start in a new city. That's exactly what I needed, and for the past 2 months, I've been living my best life. I won't lie, it hasn't been easy, and I still am in therapy. We do virtual meetings now. But I have been moving on with my life instead of fixating on the past and wondering why my parents didn't love me and why my love wasn't enough for Frank to stay with me. The problem was them all along and not me, so it was pretty pointless for me to constantly worry about them and how they felt about me. I was great to those people, but they were ungrateful and just generally bad people, and that's why they never valued me. Even if I did something huge for them, they still wouldn't value me, so it was better for me to just let it all go. It all sounds like a bunch of philosophical mumbo-jumbo, but it's really true. Letting go actually helps rather than holding on to your anger. That does nothing except ruin you, and I learned that the hard way, but whatever. Frank is my sister's problem now, and I wish her all the best for her new life. All of them really and truly deserve each other. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Son told me he didn't want me to attend his wedding because his fiancé's family thought that I was not rich enough. So I got revenge by canceling his venue. I 52F have been a single mother to my son 25M and have raised him on my own since he was born. My husband unfortunately passed away while I was pregnant with him. He had an aneurysm in his sleep, and by the time I woke up, he was gone. Since then, I have raised him on my own, and I have honestly sacrificed a lot, something that other single parents can also attest to. And I'm not saying that he owes anything to me because I'm his mother, but a little appreciation would be nice. Unfortunately, he ended up telling me that he did not want me to attend his wedding a couple of days ago because, apparently, according to his fiancée and her family, I did not look like I was rich enough to fit in with the kind of people that would be present there. That was incredibly hurtful, so I did something really underhanded as well, and it's really not in my nature, but I just couldn't help myself. All of this started 2 years ago when he first started dating Zoe. He met her through friends, from what I know, and she belongs to quite a wealthy family. Her parents own one of the top real estate firms in the state, and they are pretty much rolling in money. She looks the part as well, always dressed in luxury brands from head to toe, and she owns 3 cars. In comparison, I obviously look like a peasant, since I'm just an economics professor in college. I do make a decent amount of money, and it has been good enough for me and my son, since that's how I've been able to pay all the bills and the rent and afford to be able to raise him single-handedly for the past 30 years at least. It used to be good enough for us until we started dating Zoe, and then things started changing and getting weird between us. Just for the record, I never had a problem with his relationship with Zoe, or her as a person until recently. Even though after the first time that we met, my son had called me up later on to tell me that I needed to start changing certain things about my house so it looked better. He had said that the fact that most of the furniture in my house looked really old was pretty embarrassing for him, since he had been to Zoe's parents' mansion, and it was crazy how beautiful and shiny everything was. So he wanted me to at least put an effort into making my home look better, and we had a fight after that first meeting because I did not think that there was anything wrong with the way my house looked. And the fact that certain things were really old just meant that it had character. I did not want a shiny, glamorous lifestyle like Zoe or her parents because I knew that I could not afford it, and I wanted to live within my means. I was perfectly happy with how my life was, and I did not have any complaints, so he had no reason to be complaining about it either. Because some of the things that he wanted me to replace, like some furniture and stuff, had actually been picked out by my late husband, and I really valued them. So we got into a fight back then, and I told him that if he was so embarrassed of me, then maybe he shouldn't have introduced me to his rich girlfriend in the first place. And then he realized he was being a jerk and apologized to me later on, and we were able to patch things up. But after that, he never brought Zoe over to my place, and I only met her a handful of times, and I met her parents once when they got engaged and I attended the party that they had. Even then, my son had a lot to say about the way that I was dressed, and he said that it was an engagement party so I should have put more effort into how I dressed. But according to me, I was dressed perfectly fine. I'm not stupid. I could tell that his real problem was with the fact that I was not dressed in luxury brands, and I was just wearing things that I could afford, but I guess he was too afraid to say it anyway. I tried not to mind that, and even though he had started being very distant from me ever since he had introduced Zoe to me, I still tried to keep in touch with him. But then 3 days ago, he visited me and told me that after Zoe and her parents had met me at the engagement party, they did not think that I would fit in with the crowd that would be present at their wedding, since it would be mostly their friends and other business associates who worked with their parents, but none of his family members. And since Zoe's parents were funding most of it, he thought that it would be better for him to respect their wishes. He even said that he would have a private ceremony later on, and I would be invited to that, but for now, he just wanted me to understand where he was coming from because ultimately, he did not want me to feel out of place. I was very hurt when he said that and I started crying, but then he got really exasperated and said that there was nothing worth crying over because it was just a fact that I did not look rich enough to fit in there, and he did not want me to embarrass neither myself nor him. He told me that he had hoped that I would understand, but I was just being selfish by not caring about his image in front of his in-laws. And once I stopped crying, I told him to get out of my house and never come back. He tried to argue, but I just screamed at him and asked him to leave. Once that was done, I was still pretty upset, so I decided to do something that I'm not sure was the right move or not. So a couple of weeks ago, I had actually helped him get the venue that he wanted for his wedding. When I called him to check up on him a couple of weeks back, he had been telling me that he was struggling to finalize the venue. Apparently, the place that he wanted was something that Zoe had her mind set on, and it was not something that had been listed in the properties that their wedding organizers had shown them. But it was a really beautiful place, a little out of the city. However, the owner was not willing to put it up for rent and had refused to let them get married there, and he had been trying to negotiate with this person for ages along with Zoe's parents, but he just refused to give it up no matter how much money they offered him. And Zoe was equally stubborn. She had refused to even consider any other place, and now there were just a couple of weeks to go for the wedding, and they had even sent out invitations with that address printed on them on Zoe's insistence. But they still hadn't been able to finalize the place and were still trying to negotiate with the owner. When he told me the name of the owner, I realized that I knew this person. I realized that I used to go to college with this guy, and I immediately thought that maybe I could help him out. But I wanted it to be a surprise, so I just told him that I was sorry about it and I hoped that things would work out for him somehow. But then I decided to reach out to this guy somehow, and after speaking to him for a couple of days, I figured that the reason he was not willing to rent out his property for any events was because he and his wife were worried that if they allowed events to be held there, the people hosting would trash the place, and it had happened a couple of times before. So they did not want that to happen, and they wanted to preserve the natural beauty of their property. But I told him that this was my son that we were talking about, and since he knew me personally, I could vouch for the fact that none of this was going to happen. And on top of that, Zoe's parents were also the owners of the top real estate firm, and so he did not need to worry about whether the place would get trashed or not. It took me a while, but after a few days I was finally able to convince him, and he agreed to speak to my son. I was also able to convince him not to mention my name, because I wanted to tell them about it after the wedding and surprise myself anyway. Once I was able to convince him, he agreed to it, and my son was really happy. He did not have any idea that I was behind all of this, and I guess that was why he was so confident when he told me that I was not wanted at the wedding anyway. After he paid me that visit, I was very hurt, and I decided to call up the owner of the place, and I explained to him what had happened just now. I did not intend to overshare, but I was so upset that I just ended up telling him everything, and he literally had to comfort me even though we are not particularly close. But he and his wife were really kind to me and told me that they were going to back out of the deal because they did not think they wanted to have anything to do with such an ungrateful person. I thanked them, and the very next day, they told me that they had returned the money that they had taken in advance and had informed them that they would no longer be able to rent out their property to them, so they had to look for someplace else. Zoe's parents had apparently been furious and had even threatened to sue them, but they said that they did not care about any of it. There were still 2 weeks to go for the wedding, and the papers that they had signed clearly stated that they were perfectly within their means to cancel up to 1 week before the event was supposed to be held. So they couldn't exactly sue them on any legal grounds because they had stuck to the contract. It's not their fault they didn't get their lawyer to read the fine print in a hurry. So now they did not have a venue, and I felt pretty vindicated, so much so that I decided to put all of this in a letter and send it to my son. It was a petty move, I agree, but he had hurt me a lot over the course of the past couple of months, and I just couldn't tolerate this anymore. So I explained everything in my letter, and instead of posting it, I went to his house that evening itself, knocked on the door, and left that letter on the doorstep before driving back home to make sure that he wouldn't be able to reach out to me. After that, I decided to block him as soon as I got into the car, and later that night, he paid me a visit once again, but this time he cut a much more sorry figure. He told me that he had come over as soon as he had finished reading the letter, and he was here to apologize because he had no idea that I was the one who had managed to get that venue for him. He was literally crying and said that he was really sorry about the way that he was treating me. He had no idea that it would hurt me so much, but now he had spoken to Zoe, and even she was quite upset, so he needed me to speak to the owner and fix the situation for him, because there were just 2 weeks to go before the wedding, and all the invitations that had the venue's address printed on them had already been sent out, so they really needed my help at this point. He started begging me to help him out, but I told him that the way that he had been treating me for the past couple of months, ever since he had started dating Zoe, had been absolutely unacceptable, and the things that he had said were really hurtful, so I don't think that I wanted anything to do with him after this, because I had believed that I had raised a good man, but he had been extremely shallow and had decided to side with his fiancée and her parents over his mother. I told him that right from when he was a child, I had sacrificed a lot for him, and in return, I had only ever expected him to be a bit appreciative of me, but he had made it very clear that he was ashamed and embarrassed by me and did not want to claim me as his family just because his fiancée and her parents were not on board with it and were embarrassed by me. He said that he was going to take it all back, speak to Zoe and her parents, and get them to apologize to me as well, but for now, he just wanted me to speak to the owner and fix the situation so that they could get married in the venue that had been chosen already. I told him that I had already spoken to the owner, and I was not going to keep disturbing them again and again, so now they had to figure out a way to deal with this on their own because I would not be able to help them out in any way whatsoever. And then he started getting pissed off and told me that I was being really unreasonable right now. So I told him that he had to leave because I could not help him out. I was feeling pretty adamant at the time, but he just seemed to give up and told me that I was free to do whatever I wanted. But if I did not help him out this time, I was going to lose him forever because he had never thought of me as a vindictive person. But clearly, I was being extremely selfish, and he was sick of having to balance these two because it was just so much pressure on him. He told me that he couldn't keep up with this balancing act, but at least Zoe would be understanding. He claimed that he was exhausted and was done with it. Then he left, and since then, I've been worried about whether I have made the right choice or not. So I'm here to ask Aita for refusing to help my son get back his wedding venue. Update 1. Hi. So it's been a week since I've spoken to my son last, and I still haven't reached out to the owner of the venue to fix anything. I had been pretty conflicted about what I needed to do, but things are clear to me now. I was just being a sentimental fool, but I've thought things through now, and my son is old enough to deal with this on his own. Besides, I really don't even think that I could get the owner to change their minds after what I told them, because they seemed pretty firm on their decision. I have spoken to a bunch of my friends and relatives, and I have explained the entire situation to them. Since a lot of family members were also pretty surprised that he was getting married, but they had not received an invitation, so I told them the real reason why he wasn't inviting us. He was embarrassed of his family and did not think that we would fit in with the crowd that his fiancée and her parents had invited. People were really offended, and when I told them what I had done with the venue and everything, they seemed to think that it was an appropriate reaction for me to have. Also, my son hasn't even bothered to speak to me after the last time that he left, and we didn't exactly end the discussion on a good note. If he really thought that this was important enough, he would have reached out to me once again. There are just a couple of days to go for the wedding. I don't know what they're going to do since they have already printed the address of the venue on the invitations, but I know that is really not my problem anymore. Because if he doesn't want to invite me to his wedding and consider his family, it also means that I have been absolved of my responsibilities as his mother. So I'm still trying to process this emotionally because it's quite difficult, as throughout my life all I've ever had is my son as a single mother. But in my head, I have made a decision, and I'm going to stick to it. Update 2. Hi. So there are just 4 days to go until the wedding, and I was really not holding out any hope that my son would reach out to me anymore. But today, Zoe actually reached out to me. It was pretty surprising that she would ask me to speak to her because I had assumed that she and her family did not want me at their wedding in the first place, so why would she expect me to want to talk to her? But when she called me, I had a gut feeling, and I answered the call. I was pretty cold to her, but on the other end, I could hear her trying her best not to cry while she spoke to me and said that she knew that I had some huge fallout with my son, but she just needed one chance to speak to me and convince me to fix things. She said some very strange things, like how she knew I did not like her much and that we hadn't started off on the right foot, but she really respected and admired me and always had. So now she wanted me to speak to the owner of the venue and try to fix the situation even though she knew that I was in a fight with her fiancé at the moment. She said that my son had apparently forbidden her from speaking to me about anything, but she really wanted me to know that she had been really disappointed when she found out that I would not be attending the wedding. That was really weird, and I snapped at her and told her that she did not need to put on an act with me because I knew that she was the one who had told my son that she and her family did not think that I was going to fit at the wedding, which is why I had not been invited, and my son had turned against me because of them. There was silence on the other end for a couple of minutes, and then went to say that neither she nor her parents had said any such thing, and there must have been some misunderstanding. After that, both of us were really confused, and I insisted that this was exactly what my son had told me. She, on the other hand, said that she had said no such thing, and in fact, my son had told her that I was the one who had refused to attend because apparently I did not like her and did not approve of her family because I thought that they were too arrogant and snobbish. Once we had swapped stories, we realized that my son had been feeding us both a bunch of lies, because in all probability, he was the one who was embarrassed and was throwing Zoe and her family under the bus just so that he wouldn't have to invite me to the wedding and show everybody at the wedding that he did not exactly belong to their world. I realized what was going on. My head literally started spinning. So I told Zoe that I would call her back later to discuss this in detail. But for now, I just need a break. After about half an hour, once I had managed to process this, I called her back, and we talked about this some more. I told her everything that had happened right from the beginning, how my son had always made it seem like she and her family had a problem with me. But she claimed that she had never said any of these things, and neither had her parents said anything that my son had claimed, and told me that my son had always made it seem like I did not like their family, which is why she had kept her distance from me. Even when he decided not to invite me to the wedding, he had said something else to me which you guys all know, but he had told Zoe that I was the one who was not interested in attending because I did not approve of her and had actually told her that he was going no contact with me, so she needed to respect that as well, and that was why she had never bothered to speak to me about it until now. I was incredibly hurt when I learned that these things were happening because of my son, not because of his partner. Because at least when I believed that Zoe and her family were behind all of this, I could forgive my son, even if it was just a little bit, because I knew that he was under somebody else's influence. But now, knowing that he was doing all of this on his own, there is just no forgiveness for him in my heart anymore. After speaking to Zoe, both of us were really disappointed, and she told me that she had nothing to say to him anymore. After apologizing to each other for the misunderstandings, we hung up. It has been a couple of hours since then, and I'm just sitting in one spot with no idea what to do. I'm pretty sure that after finding out all of this, she is going to cancel her wedding, and good for her, she actually deserves better, and so do I. But unfortunately, I can't exactly find a better son for myself. This is all I have. And every time I think about how much I have done for him and what he did for me, my heart just starts hurting more and more. I'm pretty sure he's going to reach out to me after this, since he's going to be able to figure out that Zoe and I have had a discussion about all of this, and both of us know the truth now. With nowhere to go, I'm sure he'll come back home. But with what he has done, I think he has lost the right to call my house his home and me his mother. Update 3. Hey, so after yesterday's post, I've been grieving the loss of my son. He's alive, but I know that I've lost him, and even if he comes back, I'm not taking him back in, at least not until I've managed to deal with this emotionally by myself. But I had predicted that with nowhere to go, he would come back home, and that's exactly what happened today. I figured that once she had found out the truth, Zoe would address the problem with him, and that's what had happened. A couple of hours ago, around early evening, somebody started ringing my doorbell frantically, and when I saw who it was, I decided that I was not going to open the door since it was obviously my son. I spoke to him through the intercom and I told him to leave because everything that he had done, this home did not have a place for him anymore. I could see that he had a bunch of bags behind him, and he looked exhausted. His face was all splotchy, like it would get when he had been crying, but I didn't let that weaken my resolve, and I just ignored it when he told me that he was here to apologize to me and fix his mistakes. I could hear the desperation in his voice, and it was pretty difficult for me to not respond to that, but I just tuned him out. I could hear him saying that Zoe had kicked him out after the fight that they had, and he knew that both of us were aware of everything now. He kept speaking about things, saying how things had been really difficult for him adjusting to Zoe's world, and in the process of trying to do so, he had started acting like somebody he wasn't, and he was really sorry that he had been embarrassed of me and his family and where he came from. But it was just all really new for him in the beginning, and after a while he got used to pretending, and he got so engrossed in the act that he forgot that I was not a part of this act and it was hurting me. He said that he knew that he had been selfish, and he knew that he probably did not deserve either of our forgiveness, but he just wanted a chance from me since I was his mother, and I would be more forgiving than his partner. At that point, I told him that I might have been more forgiving if he had actually been sorry, but right now he was just sorry that he had been caught in all his lies. He was sorry because he needed a place to stay, and he did not want to spend money living in a hotel or finding a place of his own, but he was not sorry for what had happened because if he was, he still wouldn't be trying to justify what he had done. He would just be apologetic, acknowledge his mistakes, and let it be, but he had mentioned how difficult it had been for him at least 5 times since he showed up, so I didn't believe that he was genuinely apologetic. I told him that I might forgive him eventually. I'm not sure of that yet, but for now I wanted him to just leave me alone. He then started bargaining with me, saying that he would be willing to pay rent to stay with me, but he just wanted to come back here and make things right with me. He even said that he was saying this genuinely because if he wanted to, he could have lived with his friends, but I knew that he was bluffing because from what Zoe had told me, he hadn't even bothered to invite a bunch of his friends to the wedding, so in all probability, even they were not on speaking terms with him as of now, and that was why he was so desperate to live with me anyway. After a while of bickering with him, he snapped at me and said that I was just as heartless as before, and then left. I know he's not going to be homeless. He has enough resources and means to figure out a way to live on his own for a couple of weeks, and after that, he can just find an apartment for himself. My job is done as a mother. I just had to raise him to be a decent human being, and for a while he was a good person, but now this is not my problem anymore. Update 4. Hi, so it has been 2 weeks since my last update, and on the day that my son was supposed to get married, all that happened was Zoe put up a post saying that she and my son had parted ways, and she wanted everybody to respect her privacy at this difficult time. A bunch of people sent me that post, and I kind of felt bad, but not enough to reach out to my son to console him. After that last day when he showed up at my house and I refused to let him in, he hadn't bothered to contact me anymore. So I guess I was right about what I had said. He was just sorry back then because he had been caught, and he knew that nobody else apart from me would even think about speaking to him again, but I had decided to turn my back on him, and since that had happened, he hadn't reached out to me to apologize, so I guess he's fine with staying no contact, as am I. I've been living on my own for the past couple of years anyway, so what difference does it make to be completely by myself? And it's not even like I'm lonely. I have my friends, I have my family, and I have my life. My son is just not going to be part of it anymore. That's it. Maybe I will find it in myself to forgive him one day, but it's not going to come anytime soon, and I am fine with that. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Stepmom banned my husband from my dad's birthday party because she didn't want to be embarrassed if he had a seizure. So I told my dad everything, and now he's leaving her. Hi, so my father, 50M, recently filed for divorce from my stepmother, 44F. And she and all her friends are blaming me for it, but I don't think it's my fault. It's not surprising though, since Sharon, that's what I'll call my stepmom, and I have never had a good relationship. I wouldn't say that it's been bad, but honestly, we just never really connected or got along well. I would say that she is really not the kind of person whom I would pick for my dad because she seems kind of shallow and pretentious. She got married to my father when I was 16, and they had been together for about 3 years before they got married. When they were dating, she was nice to me, but I could tell that it was all for show because she obviously had to get along with the daughter of the man that she was seeing. I could see right through her, but my dad seemed to be happy with her, so I never said anything about it. Besides, it's not like she had screwed up colossally or something, so I had no reason to ruin his happiness just because I didn't like her whole vibe. That would be really petty, but now I kind of wish that I had said something anyway. A year before their marriage, Sharon started living with us, and she was kind of annoying to be around because she was always just trying to be overbearing and controlling. She was changing everything around the house and trying to make it look better, but honestly, all that she was doing was changing things that my mother had picked out for the house, and she knew it because my mother had great taste, and my dad would occasionally brag about it to guests. For context, my mother passed away in a car crash when I was 7 years old, and everybody missed her because she was a wonderful human being. Whenever guests would come over, people would occasionally bring her up and reminisce about the times we had with her, and my dad and I also looked back on those memories very fondly. It was not something that happened all the time, but whenever it did happen, my dad and I would always tear up because our time with her had been cut short and it still hurt. Sharon was probably jealous of that and couldn't stand it, so that's why she started changing everything, and slowly but surely, she started erasing any and every trace of my mother from the house. It started with something really small like the decorations and the wallpaper that my mother had picked out, but then she moved on to bigger things. She made my dad put all her clothes in the attic to make space for her wardrobe, which I can still understand, but then she said that she was not comfortable with having my mother's photos around the house and had all her photographs removed, even the family photos that we had together. I thought it was a bit extreme and put up a good fight against it, but my dad said that this was our new family now, and my mother would have wanted to make everyone feel as happy and comfortable as they can be, so I conceded and didn't bring it up again. But I knew that Sharon was trying to replace my mom. I could understand that she was kind of threatened because of my mother, and you can't exactly compete with a dead person, but I could never understand why she had to be so insecure. I mean, my mother was gone, and she had my dad all to herself just the way she wanted it. People only talked about her because she had been young when she passed away, and of course that had been a huge shock to all of us, so it was not easy for us to move on, especially for the people closest to her, her family. So it was natural for us to occasionally talk about her and keep her alive in our memories. That was the least that we could do. We didn't want to forget her, and if she had any empathy at all, she would respect that, and instead of trying to replace her, she would just accept that she was not my mother and was never going to be. She was her own person, and that's just how it was. She could look at it as a positive thing as well, but she just had to feel threatened and make it into a competition. So she started trying to act like my mother, and her definition of being a mother meant that she had to control every aspect of my life. I believe that she felt that I would find it endearing, but I honestly just found it annoying, the way that she was constantly trying to tell me what to do. She would give me unsolicited advice literally all the time, be it about boys or clothes or even my education. I mean, she didn't even have a college degree herself, but sure, I was going to take advice from her. And she didn't even do it in a nice way. She was always really condescending about it and treated me like a 5-year-old who knew nothing about the world, even though I was literally 16 at the time. And yeah, maybe 16 is not really that old, but I'm sure that nobody thinks it's appropriate to talk down to a 16-year-old. It was really unnecessary for her to act like I was a total idiot or something. She would talk to me like I didn't understand anything and was not capable of making my own decisions. It was just really irritating, and I don't know exactly how to explain it to you guys, but imagine being spoken to like you were a child, but it doesn't come from a place of concern or love. It just comes from a place of wanting to make you feel inferior. There was no real affection. She would only talk to me like that because she felt like I was stupid or something. She would also keep insisting that she was my second mother, and honestly, that was more creepy than cute. I didn't like it one bit, and after a couple of months, I was forced to tell her to just cut it out because she was not my mother, and she couldn't just squeeze herself into the role because she didn't need to. I didn't want her to. I did have a mother of my own, and I loved her, and I always will, even though she's gone now. I didn't ask for a replacement, and it was really weird of her to even try so hard. So she cut it out and stopped trying so hard because it was getting on my nerves. But what I didn't expect was that she would find other ways to annoy me. She would still talk to me like I was an infant and would be condescending, but at least now she wasn't trying to give me advice or act like my mother. And I knew that it was all for show anyway, so it didn't really affect me. What did annoy me was the fact that she would get my dad involved in things that he had no business being a part of, just because she wanted to feel like she had control over me. After I had told her to back off for a while, she started getting my dad to talk to me about her concerns. Just a little example. When I was 17, I was having a little trouble with a girl at school who was being nasty to me for no reason. I had been talking about it to my friends on my phone, and I guess Sharon snooped through it and found out about it, but she couldn't talk to me about it because I had told her to back down, so she sent my dad to talk to me about it. And I knew it was him talking, but all I could hear were Sharon's words coming out of his mouth. And then when I was about to apply for colleges, she started talking about how she had expected me to choose a better college at a party that my dad had thrown for me to celebrate the college that I did get accepted into and I was going to attend. I mean, she was just the single most annoying person I had to deal with, and I was glad to be rid of her when I finally moved out. I think it's pretty obvious that after I moved out for college, I only came back home for the holidays because I didn't want to have to deal with her. Even when I would come home occasionally, she would still behave the same way with me, even though I was a literal full-grown adult woman. And while I wouldn't say that we had a really bad relationship, it was certainly not great, and I don't know about her, but I never liked her. Recently, however, she invited me to my father's 50th birthday party that she was throwing for him. She told me that it was going to be a huge party, and she had invited all his friends and most of our family. She had even gone out of her way to invite my maternal grandparents, and I thought that was a mature move for her, because she always hated the fact that my dad had continued to keep in touch with his ex-in-laws. She was having the party at one of my dad's favorite restaurants, and it was going to be pretty big, but for some reason, she told me that she wanted to talk to me in person a couple of days before the party. I was skeptical about it because I couldn't imagine me and her having anything to talk about because we hadn't exactly been in touch for the past couple of years, but I still agreed because it seemed important. So 3 days ago, I decided to meet her at a coffee shop near my house. We met, and she was just as annoying as usual, acting like I was a toddler she was meeting, and earned us several weird looks from other people as well. So you guys can probably tell by now that her behavior is not something that I made up in my head because I wanted a reason to hate her. She was actually just really annoying to talk to and behaved in a very weird and insulting way. Anyway, once we sat after some small talk, she told me that she wanted to discuss the party with me. I thought that she was going to tell me that she needed my help with the arrangements or even the budget, but instead, she told me that she wanted to tell me that I was not allowed to bring my husband to the birthday party because of something so awful and dehumanizing that I can't even believe she said it right to my face and expected me to be okay with it. So just to be clear, I've been married to my husband Jason, 24M, for 2 years, but we have been together ever since 9th grade. And yeah, he's my high school sweetheart. Everybody knew that we were going to get married as soon as we graduated, and we did. He's my soulmate, and I love him more than anybody alive, and I can say the same for him. Jason has also had epilepsy since he was a child, and even though he does take medicines for it, he still gets fits occasionally. I'm totally cool with it, and I expect that other people should also be okay with that because it's something beyond his control, and it's really insensitive and disrespectful to use that against him in any context. So when Sharon told me that I was not allowed to bring him as a +1 to the party because she was afraid that he might have a fit among all those people, I had no idea what to say to her. It was not only disrespectful, but it was straight-up ableism, and it took all the strength I had to not throw my coffee onto her face and walk out. Instead, I decided to just walk off without bothering to even dignify that with a response. I didn't even reply to her and walked out of the coffee shop, got into my car, and drove back home. I declined the invitation as soon as I was back home and blocked Sharon immediately. I was seething and trying my best to control my temper, but I just couldn't, and I ended up crying on the couch because I was just so angry. First off, this was my father and his birthday party, and even though she was organizing it, it didn't give her the right to say something so humiliating and insensitive to me, especially about the one person that I love the most just as much as my dad. And I know for a fact that she knew that this was going to hurt me, because I don't think anybody in my position would have taken it kindly. And more importantly, it's not like she didn't know how much I love Jason. He's been in my life ever since I was 13, and she knows very well that I hate it when people try to make it seem like Jason is any less capable or worthy of love and respect than other people just because of his condition. If anything, he is far better than us because he's so strong and deals with something that most people look down upon. Sharon has always known about my feelings on this, and yet she didn't think it was inappropriate and insulting to demand that I don't bring him to the party with me. He's my husband, of course. We are a package deal now, especially since this is a family event, and more importantly, it's my dad's birthday. I don't think she has the right to tell me who I'm allowed to bring anyway. When I was crying on the couch, I was trying to be quiet because I didn't want to talk to Jason about this. But he heard me crying, and he rushed to my side to comfort me, and I just couldn't keep it in. I told him what Sharon had said, and I also said that it was becoming really difficult for me to keep in touch with my father because just like the two of us, they were also a package deal because they were husband and wife. I didn't want to jeopardize their relationship, but at the same time, I just couldn't stand Sharon anymore. I had already considerably reduced my visits to my dad's house because of her, but right now, she was putting me in a position where I might have to cut them off entirely. I had already spoken to my father about the way that Sharon used to infantilize me and disrespect me constantly growing up, but he was convinced that it came from a place of love and affection and she was just concerned about me, which is why she treated me that way. Plus, I was really just a kid because I was in my teens, and my dad didn't fully understand the extent to which Sharon would push me with her strange behavior. At the end of the day, she was just being annoying, and it wasn't hurting me, so he let it slide. But this was something else. Jason comforted me, and after I had stopped crying, he told me that he was used to people saying things like that about him and it didn't hurt him anymore, which was really sad and not how things should be. But he also told me that I needed to talk to my father because this was a lot more serious than before, and even though he didn't find it hurtful, he could tell that I was really upset and it was about time that I confronted my dad about it once and for all. So after talking to him, I felt slightly better and decided to talk to my dad about it. I had already declined the online invitation so Sharon would know that she screwed up. But that was not enough. She had taken things too far, and she needed to be taken down a peg. So I called my father up that evening, and I told him what his wife had said to me. I told him that I couldn't in good conscience attend his birthday party anymore or even stay in touch with him because what Sharon had said had been deeply humiliating for the both of us, and I couldn't accept that kind of behavior anymore. I also mentioned that I knew he loved her, which is why he had always believed that she treated me like an infant because she was desperate to have a good relationship with me. But the truth was, she only treated me like that because she was desperate to establish how dominant she was, and when she couldn't do that, she started finding other ways to get back at me, and this was just one of them. There was a lot of pent-up frustration that I had to let go of, and I chose that moment to do it. My dad heard me out patiently, and after I was done venting, he told me that he would see what he could do about this. He apologized to me and said that he was really sorry about what Sharon had said about Jason. That was really unforgivable, and he could totally understand where I was coming from. He told me that he also loved Jason like his own son, and he wouldn't even want a party without him. He told me that he would talk to Sharon and make sure that she apologized to me as soon as possible. That was all that we talked about, and after that, we hung up. I felt better after getting all of that out of my system, and Jason and I tried not to think about it for the rest of the day. We didn't hear from either my father or my dad for the next 2 days, but this morning I received word from my aunt that apparently my father had filed for divorce. It was shocking because I definitely hadn't seen that coming, and my aunt was texting me to ask if I knew anything about it, but I didn't even know that he was getting divorced. So I immediately decided to call my father up and ask him about this because I absolutely had to get to the bottom of what was happening. When I called him, he told me that he was about to reach out to me, and the first thing that he told me was that he had filed for divorce from Sharon and was living separately right now. He said that he was living in a hotel a little distance away from his house and asked me to visit so he could explain everything to me. So I headed over there as soon as I could, abandoning all my work, and when I got to his room, The first thing that he did was hug me and apologize for everything that he put me through because he was being selfish and putting his own happiness above mine. He said that he was aware of how selfish he had been so far and had actually been refusing to believe that maybe Sharon was not a good fit for our family. He said that he had noticed how insecure and jealous she was of my mother, a person who didn't even exist in this world anymore. He also noticed Sharon's constant attempts to put me down and make me feel bad about myself. He knew that she was controlling and potential, but he was willing to let all of that go just because she made him happy when they were on their own and didn't think about anything else. He admitted that he had been selfish and was trying really hard to make himself believe that she was a good person, but they had been having a lot of problems in the past couple of years, and she had become increasingly overbearing and suspicious. She was constantly accusing him of still being hung up on my mother and would bring that up in every fight that they had. She would constantly insult my mom and me, and he tried really hard to explain to her that he was in love with her, but she just didn't buy it and constantly compared herself with my mom. It was just getting insane and difficult, and the thing that she said about Jason was pretty much the last straw. They had already been having marital problems, and when my father confronted her about what she said that she didn't even feel guilty about it because she was trying to make everything perfect for him, and he should apparently have been grateful to her. When he tried to explain to her that he actually wanted Jason at the party regardless of his condition, she got mad at him and started playing the victim. It was the usual saying that she was the bad guy because she had tried to do something nice for him. He tried to tell her that this wasn't nice because it was humiliating and insulting for me and my husband, but she was just not ready to hear it and continued to play the victim even though she wasn't one. So my dad finally lost it and told her that she could continue to act like she was the one who was suffering here. But he was out because he couldn't do this anymore. He left the house in a huff and moved to the hotel that evening itself. He spoke to his lawyer and had him draw up the divorce papers as soon as he could. The only reason he didn't say anything to me for those 2 days was because he was ashamed and embarrassed and felt like he had failed me as a father. It was quite an emotionally charged conversation and one that we desperately needed to have for a really long time. Once all of it was out in the open, we decided that we were going to give each other a chance to fix this relationship because in spite of everything, I love my father and I didn't want to lose him. He told me that he had announced that he had filed for divorce in the family group, one of which I was not a part of because they send a lot of messages there, and I really have better energy in person, so I was the last to know since he had to call me up and tell me after he sent the message. He had also sent the same message to Sharon and was waiting for her to respond to it. But either way, it didn't matter because it was done now, and he was not going to cancel the proceedings at any cost. So even if she didn't respond to the message, she would have to respond to it legally. After talking to my dad, I came back home and I felt relieved. He was finally going to be done with Sharon. But unfortunately, it seems like Sharon isn't done with me. She called me from a different number up a couple of hours ago. And boy, she really let it out. She started screaming at me as soon as I answered the call and accused me of a gazillion things, ruining her marriage and being the worst one. She claimed that apparently I had always had it in for her because I worshipped my mother and couldn't stand the fact that somebody else was taking her place. For the record, my dad had dated other women after my mother's passing, and I had never had a problem with any of them, so that was definitely not true. Sharon also claimed that the only reason she had said that I wasn't allowed to bring Jason to the party first was because she wanted to save us all the embarrassment, and she only had good intentions, but I had to distort it into something evil because I hated her for no reason. She was drunk and having a hard time making sense. I actually felt pity for her, and I've been feeling really weird about it ever since that phone call. So, IDA for telling my dad that his wife had told me that I wasn't allowed to bring my husband to his 50th birthday party because of my husband's epilepsy? Update 1. Hey, so it's been a couple of days since my post, and I don't even know why I was questioning myself or beating myself about what happened. Sharon brought this onto herself, and there is no way that she can pretend otherwise. I guess I was just feeling bad for her because she was drunk and seemed like she was really in a lot of emotional turmoil, but honestly, this is not my fault. I mean, she told me that I couldn't bring my epileptic husband to a party because she was embarrassed by what could have happened if he had a fit there. What did she even think was going to happen? I was just going to agree and be like, yeah, my husband shouldn't come with me to my dad's birthday party because of his condition. You're right, Sharon? I mean, it's ridiculous to even think about right now. I guess I'm just a really sensitive person, which is why I felt bad for her. But now I know that there is no reason for me to feel sorry about anything that happened, especially given the fact that none of this is my fault. Both my dad and Jason think that I did the right thing by telling my father because what she said to me was really insulting, and she's been acting like this since I was 13. She's had plenty of chances to fix her behavior and watch herself, but if she thinks that the way that she behaves is normal, then that's on her. Besides, how on earth was I supposed to know that she was having problems with my dad anyway? It's not like my dad discusses these things with me, and she and I are not exactly friends, so there is no way I could have known, and I definitely didn't do any of this on purpose. She's been acting like a great psycho for years now, and she's finally getting called out about it, and it's about time that it happened. Update 2. Hey, so my dad called me today to tell me that he is still having the birthday party. I mean, it only makes sense because Sharon used his card to pay for everything so he could still have the party and not invite her. So the party is still happening, and Jason and I are going to be attending it. Since it's in 3 days, we have already started discussing therapy for the two of us as we really want to fix our relationship, and this is not something that we think we can fix on our own, so we need the help of a professional. Jason also thinks that this is a great idea, and I'm really excited, to be honest. My dad and I were close before, and it feels like an old friend is coming home. That's pretty much the best way I can describe it. Still no word from Sharon regarding the divorce and everything, but that's not surprising. She's probably pretty insulted, and she really should feel that way. Update 3. So my dad had the party today, and I thought it was going to be weird given the circumstances, but it actually wasn't. It was pretty fun, and all of us had a good time there. All his friends and a lot of our family members were present there, and nobody even talked about Sharon, just what was needed. Jason and I had the time of our lives. We got drunk and danced till our feet hurt, and this is probably the first time in a really long time that I remember having this much fun with my father. I felt like a little girl again when we turned on the music and danced in our living room. It was great, and I just wish we could have more days like this. Update 4. Okay, so Sharon finally responded to the divorce petition, and she's not contesting it. It is pretty surprising, but then again, it was very unlikely that she would try to fight it. She is, however, demanding a huge sum as alimony, and quite frankly, I don't think she deserves it, but whatever, that's between their lawyers. The divorce proceedings and the settlement negotiations are supposed to begin in a couple of days, and I just honestly hope that it doesn't get nasty. On the bright side, my dad and I have started therapy, and it's going well. We have decided that we are going to try and have lunch or dinner together at least once every week and really rebuild our relationship. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My family knew about my fiancé's cheating with my best friend and kept it from me. How do I face them all and confront their betrayal? I, 22F, need some serious advice on how to navigate any of this. I found out a week ago that basically my entire family has been helping my fiancé, M23, hide his affair with my best friend, 23F. I created this account because I honestly have no one else to tell this to. Honestly, so my brain figured internet strangers would be best. None of my family and friends have read it, thank the stars. For extra emotional context, me and my fiancé have been together since 8th grade, on and off until 2020. I do apologize if this gets long, but it's so much to unpack, and I just want to refresh myself with everything I have, as well as figure out the best way to confront my family, best friend, and fiancé with at least some dignity. Here are names and ages for context for everyone involved. Richard, half-brother, 26. Maria, half-sister, 27. Angie, my mom, 56. Peach, best friend, soon-to-be ex-best friend. Alex, my fiancé, soon-to-be ex-fiancé. A week ago, Alex was taking a shower and had left his phone on our bed. Me and my fiancé have an open phone policy, seeing as we both struggled with getting cheated on in past relationships, go figure, seeing my situation. I was packing my suitcase for a family trip that is happening after my rehearsal dinner tomorrow. I heard his phone keep going off. He yelled from our shower if I could mute his phone. I went to get his phone and saw that it was Peach calling him. I was curious at first, but seeing as she's part of my bridal party, I didn't find it too suspicious. I muted the phone and soon messaged Peach from my own phone. Here is the paraphrase of our conversation. Me, hey Peach, my fiancé is in the shower RN. What did you need? Peach. Oh, nothing LOL. Just wanted to confirm with him the flowers for your bouquet and I'll. Me. That's weird. I didn't change my mind on any flowers or anything. The florist was contacted last month, and everything was paid for already by Tony. Tony is my mom's husband. Peach. Are you sure? I remember him telling me you changed your mind after that. It was the usual wedding talk after that point. In hindsight, I should have found it very weird that she would call him about 6 times to confirm a flower choice when she simply could have either texted me or Alex. When Alex got out the shower, I told him Peach tried calling him about my flower choices. I asked him what made him think I changed my mind on the flowers for the wedding. He paused for a bit. I now know he was basically stalling and doing the "oh, I'm thinking" face when I had asked. He then said that he thought I had mentioned it in passing during a dinner. I told him that I didn't recall that. He then just shrugged and grabbed his phone and went back in the bathroom. I hate to be one of those people, but for once my gut actually sunk. I got this really paranoid feeling, and I couldn't shake it. I tried to convince myself that it was just my old cheating trauma trying to creep back. Yet I just couldn't let this go. Me and Alex had dinner, and I pushed through all the way until it was time to go to bed. I pretended to fall asleep first. Me and Alex usually cuddle to fall asleep. When I knew he was in a deep enough sleep, I went to check his phone again. I checked his Instagram, Snapchat, and messages, and I couldn't find anything. I then went to his Facebook Messenger. He uses Messenger to communicate with his family overseas. I only saw his main family, and most of the messages were about getting plane tickets to come to the wedding. We were supposed to get married in December with a Winter Wonderland-themed wedding. However, with my previous relationships, I checked his archives on Messenger. That's when the horrific truth came to light. There was a group chat with Peach, Alex, Richard, Angie, and Maria. The group chat was established a year ago where basically Alex and Peach confessed to having an affair to my family. My mom did shame them at first, yet she later asked Alex, "Did he truly love Peach because you can't help who you love?" "Yeah. Really great, Mom, that was super helpful." He said he was absolutely sure and that he also loved me too. TF. Then Maria and Richard offered that he, being Alex, bring up to me an open relationship. They both are in open relationships and married, and apparently it's working for them in whatever la-la land they live in. At this point, me and him were already engaged. Alex mentioned to them that it seemed too far deep to try to bring it up. Angie, my mom, even though at this point I hate to even call her that, said that they would cover for Alex and Peach until he felt strong enough to bring up an open relationship to me. As I was reading, all I could think was how in the actual hell could my family betray me like that? How could Peach betray me like that? We've been friends since kindergarten. We even grew up with Alex. How could she process in her mind to tell me fiancé and say that she loves him too? All of this in this disgusting group chat. For Alex to have the nerve to say he loves me as well. For him to know firsthand what it's like to be betrayed like this. I honestly wanted to vomit. However, I was just taking screenshot after screenshot. The more I read down, I found out that Peach took my spot on our previous family trip. I got a really bad stomach bug a while ago that caused me not to go. I can't even begin to imagine what they did on the trip, and the fact my mother was okay with all of this, I think, is what hurts the most. The fact she's known for a whole year that my fiancé was cheating on me. That's taking the longest to sink in, and I feel there is more in the group chat, but these were the major points. I've known for a whole week. It's been eating at me inside, and I want to explode and cuss them all out. I want to ruin their lives the way they ruined me. It all hurts so effing much, and I just really want advice on how to confront them. How do I even begin? What do I even say? The anger I feel is so intense that I feel like if I just let it all out, I would just look insane. Please Reddit, anything will help. I'm planning on confronting them tomorrow at our rehearsal dinner. Update 1, 2 things have escalated. Hopefully Reddit doesn't screw me over. I will recap things for my first update if things can't get fixed in my first post. For context for new people, Peach, ex-BBF, Alex, ex-fiancé, egg donor, my mother, Tony, my egg donor's STBX. I messaged Alex's parents the screenshots. His parents were very upset. I scheduled text messages to be sent out to everyone during the rehearsal dinner. I also sent the screenshots to Peach's dad. He is her only parent. Her mother isn't with us anymore. Bless her though. I made sure it went to Peach's family as well. I added them to the scheduled mass text after I decided they should know. I also sent them to my family, Alex's family and my own. Once the scheduled time went by, everything went into chaos. Peach was being berated by my now ex-friends on why things escalated. Peach's father cut her off financially. My grandparents, aunt, and Tony started grilling my mom for answers. I guess under the pressure she confessed to hating me. She thinks I'm the reason her life was difficult and ruined. I was the product of a long-going affair. I have come to find out after my mom insulted me, my aunt physically assaulted her, something she is proud of. She keeps telling me my cousin got me out quickly when the chaos ensued. Alex tried to chase us down, but my cousin maneuvered between him, and she took me to my aunt's place. That's where I'm at still. My phone has been blowing up since then. My aunt came home and recapped everything for me when she got back. They got my things from the apartment. Most important to me was my cat, and that's where my last update left off. However, things have escalated heavily. Once I woke up and took a long hot shower, I turned my phone back on. I couldn't even unlock it or clear notifications before I got a call from one of my bridesmaids. I answered, and she immediately started screaming at me about how could I ignore Peach and Alex in their time of need. At first, I was confused, seeing as I don't give a damn about them anymore. I asked her to not yell at me, but she continued anyway. She screamed that Peach self-harmed. When she sent me the images, they were very top surface level, enough for the scar to appear in a little BL odd. Regardless of whether or not it was deep enough, it still shook me. I wanted to scoff on the phone because at this point, I know she was doing it to rally people on her side since I won't respond to her text yet. She also told me Alex tried to odd. His friends found him at my apartment all groggy. They took him to the hospital where he was cleared since they didn't have to pump. They are keeping him on watch for the next 72 hours, which is good. Just because I hate his guts doesn't mean he needs to dash. After this, my friend group has been split very heavily. Since I didn't respond to either of them before they did this, I still have no intention of talking to either of them. I don't really care what they do for attention, just as long as they leave me the hell alone. During the initial confrontation with my egg donor, Tony found out my egg donor lied to him and said Peach could take my ticket to go with him for the trip. They got home and started arguing more because Tony brought up the suspicions he had about my mother cheating. She started screaming at him and confessing everything. She told him my half-siblings aren't his and a lot of other very hurtful things. He had to call the police on her to escort her off his property. Tony followed up with me this morning. Yes, he is divorcing her. His lawyers are drafting up his papers within the next week or so, and told me that my mother confessed that I was the product of a long-term affair she had with his best friend. My egg donor is a very vile woman. I am coming to learn. Yet, after finding out Tony is getting papers, she has tried to backpedal. She has been calling my aunt begging for her to convince Tony not to do this, or else she will be homeless. She has been trying to call Tony and family, but they all have been ignoring her. Yet this wasn't enough for my egg donor. She knows my aunt's schedule and tried to come over to assault me. My cousin was with me still, so she couldn't get in, but hearing her scream at me, some of my very low insecurities hurt, and I started to have a panic attack. My cousin took me upstairs. When we heard a loud crash, my mother broke through the window and ran upstairs and attacked me. For once in my life, I hit my egg donor back. All the anger I had towards her, I finally let out. My cousin was struggling to separate us that she had to run to get our neighbor. I only have a few scratches and bite marks, but outside of that, I am okay. I'm also placing charges against my egg donor. Hopefully, I can get a restraining order. Honestly, my mom ran off before the police came, but I gave them Tony's address just in case she tries going back there. I see that those evil people aren't going to stop until they get a response out of me. However, on the weird side, I got a call from my half-sister. She tried apologizing, and I cut her off because I don't want to hear it anymore. She then scoffed and had the nerve to ask if I could watch my nieces while her husband, and her boyfriend all go on a trip. I love my nieces and nephews, but I told her that she could go EFF herself if she wanted me to watch her nieces. Then she would have to ask through my aunt. She started screaming how I was being unfair to her and punishing her kids. I told her I was punishing her. She said never mind and that I couldn't see my nieces. I knew this was something that could happen, but it hurt my heart. I'm pretty sure she's telling them I hate them. I'm keeping the screenshots, and my aunt and cousin said they would back me up if they reach out in the future. This is everything, so much, but I'm expecting more to happen. Honestly, one thing I know about Egg Donor is that she hates losing. I know she sees this as a loss, and she won't stop until she comes out on top. My half-brother has me blocked on everything, and I'm pretty sure he is siding with my half-sister. I'm just really emotionally distraught, but I wanted to update you guys. I'll update again if anything else happens, but if not, this will probably be my final update because I just want all of this show to end. In good news, though, I start therapy next week. My aunt and cousin are currently packing up Alex's things and dropping them off at a buddy of his. His name is Kyle. He is on my side, and he's been helping me through all of this as well. He dropped me off my favorite fruit this morning to my aunt's. He also assured me that I can talk to him anytime. I asked him if he would be in further communication with Alex, and he said no. He's just holding on to his things until his parents can pick them up. I really appreciate him, but that's it for now. I will update in the comments once I get that restraining order updated long. I sent the screenshots to Alex's parents and explained the whole deal to them. I was honestly expecting them to ignore it or not believe me, however, they called rather quickly. They asked me if I had any hard proof of them cheating besides their confession. I confided in them that I didn't. They asked for more screenshots and I just basically sent them a good chunk of the screenshots. His mother made me feel so awful for sending them. She was sobbing and apologizing for her son. She soon became inconsolable. His father took the phone and asked, "Was it anything his son could do to make it up to me this early morning?" I was offended he asked that, yet I saw it from his perspective later. I asked him if I could be frank, and he agreed. I told him that unless his son could shrivel up and disappear, then there wasn't anything really he could say. His father said that he understood. I asked him if they could keep this to themselves until I brought it up to Alex. They said they could, and we ended the call. For a while, I thought vomiting from stress was rare, but it finally happened. Alex heard me, I guess me vomiting, not the phone call. I stepped outside to have it because he woke up and tried to rub my back. I held my hand up and cleaned myself up. This is around 7 a.m. in the morning. Alex had concern in his voice and was asking if I was okay. For once, I actually saw nothing but red, yet I kept the composure. I have no idea why, but I guess that will be my superpower I'll hold on to. I ignored him and just went back to sleep. I woke back up at 8 a.m. to start getting ready for the rehearsal dinner. Alex told me he had to get something done before heading to the restaurant. I told him that was fine and that I'd see him later. Before he left, he said he loved me, and this was one of the days he was excited for. I said, "Me too," trying not to have much rage behind it. Once he left, I gathered all the screenshots. For some people that don't know, you can schedule text messages to be sent out at a certain time. I decided to do this to send it to everyone. Peach's family, our friend groups, his family as well as mine. I sent it to go out at 1:25 p.m. This would be the halfway point of the dinner and people would be dropping off gifts early for us and etc. I gathered the black hole of stress forming in me and headed to the restaurant. When it was time, my mother and her husband were already there. My mother hugged me, and all I could do was stand there to feel her hands on me. Almost felt like she was personally violating my spirit. I did a quick tap hug so she wouldn't get suspicious, and we headed inside. Guests started flowing in, and everyone was surprisingly on time, besides my grandparents, but they moved slow, so I didn't blame them. Once everyone was gathered, Alex went on this whole spiel of how he was happy everyone could come and that he was excited for his family for the next dinner was supposed to be November 20th. He mentioned how I was the love of his life and how he was so happy our families would mingle and we could be one. I wanted to ask him how dare he say that shit, but nothing but fake smiles and nods from me. Peach was basically looking like a clueless dog and smiling right along and clapping for us. To see this happen in real life is truly mind-boggling. The length people will go to have their cake and eat it too. I could barely eat as the stress was getting to me so badly. At the time I set for the messages, people's phones started buzzing. Alex's and Peach's phone were blowing up. I would like to admit that for once a genuine smile crept on my face. It was like watching an entire kingdom crumble and fall. The horrified faces of Peach and Alex when they looked at me was golden. It's the one highlight I will hold on to from this emotional day. My aunt went ballistic. She started calling my mom a cruel, heartless bitch over and over. My mother hurriedly checked her phone and saw I sent her the screenshots. She started screaming and becoming irate, saying I was really trying to ruin her life again. As some you suggested, she still apparently is upset about being caught having an affair and being shunned. My grandparents' reaction hurt the most because they started screaming at my mother. My grandmother was trying with a few of our other guests to hold my aunt back as she started screaming every explicative she could. My grandfather was screaming at my mother that he didn't raise a whore. At this point, everyone is in screaming and crying hysterics. My other bridesmaids were cussing Peach out and calling her a slut. I hate to admit again, I took joy that my grandfather went on to screaming at Alex with some things I can't say here because he was very explicit. Do I just started laughing and sobbing? I had so much emotions that I genuinely think my body didn't know what to do, so it did everything. The tears just kept coming. My cousin escorted me outside as fast as she could with Alex chasing us down. He kept screaming my name and begging to talk. Like most you suggested, he wanted to talk to explain his side. I ignored him, and my cousin was pushing him away from her car so she could get in and drive off. She took me to my aunt's house and told me to stay there and not answer the door for anyone. I kind of felt like a kid being left at home alone. I didn't and just sat on the floor. That's when I just started bawling. All the emotions I've kept pent up for a whole week just finally came up. After about another hour, my aunt and cousin came back home. They hugged me for like a good 5 minutes. When we finally broke off, I noticed my aunt had a few scratches on her. I'm assuming they couldn't hold my aunt back for my mom for much longer. My aunt caught me up on everything. Apparently after my cousin drove off with me, Alex came back in and started screaming at Peach for ruining everything. They got into a screaming match and some of our friends were trying to split them apart. My grandparents, aunt, and Tony, my mom's husband, were drilling into my mother for answers. Tony was the most livid. Apparently during the family trip I couldn't go to, my mom told Tony that I had offered my ticket to Peach so she could enjoy a nice break for herself. Tony at this point is screaming and reading some of her messages out loud. She was begging him to stop and that she could explain. My aunt started adding on that she better start explaining because all she sees is a worthless mother and vile person. Apparently this set my mother off and she started screaming about how she hated me, about how I ruined her life and made it difficult, how she felt like she could never be happy because I was always a constant reminder of her biggest mistake ever, and she regretted not aborting me when she had the chance. That set my aunt off and she basically pounced on her. For context, my aunt is infertile. In her words, I was the daughter she never got to have, so in her mind, she went full mama bear mode on my birth giver. That's what I'm calling her now. My aunt has been more of a mother to me than my mother ever has in the past 22 years of my life. To make a long list short, I'm honestly getting back emotional, and the fatigue and empty stomach aren't helping. Here is everything else that happened. Tony is divorcing my mom. He's had suspicions for a few months she's cheating again. Peach exposed Alex's text to her that he was sleeping with her because he felt I was growing distant a while back. I was putting in overtime at work to save up for his birthday, and that he was lonely and didn't know how to bring it up to me. Peach's father spammed her with calls and will be cutting her off financially. Apparently, this is my fault, and I'm an evil witch for ruining her according to her texts. My mother has been on a tirade with our family exclaiming I'm an evil person for destroying her world again. Should have thought about that before condoning anything. Half-siblings felt it wasn't their place to say anything to me and that I should have expected Alex to look elsewhere because humans aren't monogamous and people love who they love. Same old, same old. A lot more has happened, but to avoid my brain from imploding on itself from the stress and anger, it's finally out in the air. I've been getting texts and calls from everyone, but at the moment I've left my phone in the other room. I'm updating this from my aunt's computer. My aunt offered for me to stay with her until I get out of this jumbled mess. I accepted it, seeing as I have no intention of going back to that apartment. I've already emailed my landlord, and we be handling it all next week. My boss emailed me back and said I was allowed to use some PTO for as long as I need. I will definitely take it, seeing as I'm highly considering moving somewhere quiet and peaceful. I'm thinking maybe Iowa or maybe even North Carolina. I've heard they have good cost of living in those states. I want to thank you guys so much again. I truly appreciate all the support I've been given and receiving. I'll be offline after today for a few days. I feel like I need to just disconnect from everything and just actually comfort myself. My aunt and cousin are at my place getting some of my things and my cat. Alex is there begging them to not take my things and to have me just talk to him. I don't know what he thinks a conversation will do. The emotional and mental scar I have is not going to go away for a while. I also know I have a long journey waiting for me in therapy. A lot of people have been pointing out that I was severely abused by my mother. Now that I know how much she hates me, it will be easier to go no contact now. TLDR sent the messages out to everyone. Dinner imploded. Life sucks RN, but I know we'll make it through. Thank you guys for all your messages and support again. I truly appreciate it. Reddit is a great place besides the lunatics I've encountered at this point. Thank you. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Husband defended his raging drunk who ruined our wedding, then demanded I apologize to her. Later found out he cheated with her for years. Me, 23F, and my now husband, Josh, 26M, had our wedding last week. First, everything was beautiful. I got married to my high school sweetheart and was so happy. It felt like my fairy tale come true. I felt like a princess. While I'm taking photos with my bridesmaids, I see Josh's cousin, Nicole, with a girl. I'll call her Sarah. I'm unfamiliar with her. She seems non-active, but his friend to me at first. We finish our photos and go inside to relax and chat before I walk down the aisle. A long while later, after the vows were exchanged, I bump into Sarah while on my way to the food table. She's clearly intoxicated, but through her slurred speaking I could hear her ranting about how crowded the venue was. But then it escalates. I was getting food for my mom when she said to me that she surprised Josh married someone like me because Josh could do better than me. I tried to laugh it off and I told her I was very lucky to have him. The interaction left me feeling upset, but I brushed it off as her just being drunk, and I started drinking too, and soon forgot about it. Time goes past and I'm feeling good. Me and my husband along with all the guests were dancing. Suddenly, I hear a crashing sound near the food table, and all of us rush over to see what was happening. I see Sarah on the ground sobbing hysterically, and Nicole was trying to calm her down. She had completely smashed my wedding cake and ripped the decorations. My heart was broken to see my wedding cake completely destroyed, but I tried to ask what was wrong and Sarah started screaming and cursing me. I was confused and drunk, so I started shouting back and ordered my husband to kick her out. He didn't want to and told me she should be allowed to stay since she was a friend. I argued with him and told him that she's ruined my wedding. It eventually took my husband and Nicole to get her under control and convince her to go home. Nicole left with Sarah, and when my husband came back he looked angry with me. He completely blew me off for the rest of the night, and I could tell the atmosphere was now awkward for all my guests. The next day my husband lectured me about how I hurt Sarah's feelings and demanded I apologize to her. We argued and he slept on the couch. Things eventually cooled down, so I tried to talk to him about it the following days. But he shut me down and just told me I was being overdramatic about the situation. I've never even seen Sarah until my wedding. I have no clue why she would lash out like that. I'm hurt that my husband doesn't see my perspective. Even though she was drunk, she ruined my special day, and now I can't think of the happy memories because I can only think of that incident. Sorry for the long read. Thanks for listening. Update 1. Firstly, I'm going to try and make this as short as possible. I know this update isn't going to be very shocking, but I at least want to explain myself a bit better. I started thinking and taking everyone's replies into consideration and called Nicole. I demanded she tell me the truth, and she eventually did. You all were right. Sarah and Josh were a thing. Yes, he cheated on me. For some backstory. Me and Josh have known each other since elementary school. We grew up together and started dating freshman year of high school. He was my first everything. I've never loved someone the way I love him. I didn't want to believe Nicole when she confirmed my suspicions. When she told me he cheated on me, my heart sank and I haven't stopped feeling nauseous. I'm completely devastated now. How could I be so foolish? How couldn't I see what was laid out right in front of me? Is this even real? Well, Sarah went to a different high school than me and Joshua. Nicole introduced Sarah and Josh. Nicole knew he was taken, but she's never liked me because I'm mixed. He dated Sarah while he was dating me all through high school. When we graduated, he ended things with Sarah. He wasn't currently cheating on me, but Sarah was still angry that Josh ghosted her, so she took it out on me. Nicole brought her to the wedding knowing Sarah wanted some type of revenge. I didn't want to believe that the love of my life, my whole world, the person I cherished the most could do this to me. He cheated on me for 4 whole years and I was completely oblivious. I don't want to lose him, but I can't look at him the same. He's always been so sweet, so caring of me, so loving. He has no clue that I know and I'm not sure how to bring it up to him. I wish this wasn't real. I wish I could wake up from this terrible nightmare. When I confront him, I'll update if anything important happens. And for anyone that's been kind to me, thank you so much. I wouldn't wish this upon anyone. Update 2. I want to start off by clarifying a few things. People keep asking, how was he loving and caring if he did this to you? He brings me flowers every week. He brings me lunch to my work. He cooks for me. He takes me on a fancy date once a month. He takes care of my mother. He offers to pay for everything. He always tells me how much he loves me and he used to make me feel so safe. I would have never married him if I knew he would put me through all this. I know this story is hard to believe, but it's not just a story. This is my life. Also, turns out that cheating was actually going on for closer to 6 years. Yes, she was the only girl he cheated with. I am upset that Sarah destroyed my marriage, but I know it's ultimately Josh's fault anyway. Josh gets off of work at 10 p.m., so I stayed up late to talk to him. I made Nicole promise me not to tell him I know, and shockingly she stayed true to her promise. He came through the door and I called him to sit with me while I was at the kitchen table. I told him I knew everything. At first I was shouting and ranting to him, but then it turned into me begging him to prove to me that it wasn't true. Of course it was true, and after a while he confessed to everything. Hearing it from him made it all too real. He tried to argue that since it was in high school, it shouldn't affect me that much and that it was a stupid mistake. Yeah, a stupid mistake he let go on for over 5 years. I know we were young, but he knew better. He begged me to stay and told me how sorry he was for everything he's put me through. I told him how much I love him, but I can't stay with him. I asked him why he defended her over me, and he said he didn't want to upset her because he knew how psycho she can be. I know he still loves her, or at least cares about her, because why would he still defend her years later? I can't just cut him out of my life yet. The house we live in and my car is all in his name. Not only have I lost my husband, but I've lost my whole life. After I made it clear to him I was leaving him, he got angry and we started arguing. He tried to say at least he wasn't still cheating, but I don't care. It still hurts the same. I called my mom and told her everything, so she's letting me stay with her for now. Since I live in Pennsylvania, I have 60 days to get my marriage annulled, which I plan to do. Josh keeps trying to call me, but I'm not answering it. He showed me what love is, but now he's ruined love for me. I can't see myself ever dating and trusting someone like this again. Not only was my wedding destroyed, but my whole life is now destroyed. I have no car, no house. He has full access to my bank account, and I'm sure he'll fight to keep the dogs. If anyone wants an update on when I go to get my stuff, I'll give one. None of his family apart from Nicole know he cheated or anything about what's going on. I loved his parents and they loved me too. His dad took me in after I lost mine. As for Nicole and Sarah, they've tried to contact me, but I haven't replied. Please let me be clear when I say that when you're so blindly in love, you never consider the one person you love and trust the most in this world to be cheating on you. My lawyer said he has to give me everything I paid for and I should get my bank information changed as soon as possible. My lawyer also said getting my marriage annulled would be the best option. If I can prove my car has been paid by me, then he has to give it to me, but right now there's nothing I can do about my car or house since it's all legally in his name. My lawyer is fighting for me though. I'm praying that Josh will give me the dog. Lastly, thank you again to anyone who's been kind to me throughout this. I hate reading comments because most are negative and it keeps me thinking about this whole situation. I appreciate any of you who've supported me and gave me advice more than you know. It's really helped me through this disaster, and without you guys talking some sense into me, I think I would have just stayed with him. Now I know that he isn't the man I thought I married, and I don't want him to be the father of my children anymore. I'm not sure if I'll update again. I might if something interesting happens. Goodbye for now. Update 3. Sorry for the inactivity. I haven't been feeling too well, but I'm a bit better now. I'm glad some of you wanted an update because I have one to tell. At first, Josh tried to keep my things in an effort to persuade me to get back with him. He stopped that after a day or two though. The great news is I got my car and my ex-husband gave me my dog without me having to take him to court. I could have gotten it anyway. But him just giving it over made things a lot easier on me. My bank information has changed and he didn't try to take any of my money. I've still lost my home, but there's nothing I can do about that at the moment. My lawyer has worked so hard for me and I'm so grateful to him. I had a calmer conversation with my ex when I was over to get my stuff and I've gotten a bit of closure. We talked about all our memories and had kind of our final conversation. He apologized for everything, said he understood why I was leaving him, and told me if I wanted him to leave me alone, he would. My marriage was annulled, but I'm kind of devastated that it's like it never happened now. The reason why Sarah and Nicole were calling me is because they tried to tell me I'm ruining his reputation and being a drama queen about something that happened years ago. I've blocked both of them now. Every time someone asks about why our marriage was annulled, I tell them the truth and it's upsetting him. He doesn't like that his family and coworkers know about how much of a prick he is. I wasn't going to tell his family because I don't think that's my place, but they know now anyway. His parents caught wind of what happened and called me to apologize and check up on me. They were like my second parents. I'm forever grateful to them for taking me in as their own. I'm truly going to miss having them as my in-laws. I'm living with my mom as of now, but I'm looking for cheap apartments nearby. I've never lived by myself, so I'm pretty scared of it. To my knowledge, my ex and Sarah didn't get back in contact and from the looks of things don't plan to in the future. To those asking why my things were in his name, I obviously didn't think it'd end like this. I trusted him with my life and he made a lot more money than I did. It was better to let him handle the finances. Thankfully, he hasn't screwed me over by following through with his threats to keep my car and stuff. I know I'm only 23. I know I have a lot of life left in me, but it's not feeling like that right now. I'm still in shock about everything and definitely in denial. I know I'll be okay eventually, but this has screwed my whole perspective of love up. My life has taken a full turn from what should have been the happiest moment of my life. I'm bitter. I think about what if I would have done something different. Maybe then he wouldn't have done all this and I keep making excuses for him in some type of way. I'm glad I know who he truly is now. It sickens me to know that I almost had kids with him and he would have let me go through my whole life keeping his cheating past a secret from me. I don't know how men like this can sleep peacefully at night after completely ruining people's lives. It's shocking how many of you have went through something similar. I'm so sorry to those who've been through a heartache like this. This made me laugh about how you guys are trying to create revenge plans for me. I really appreciate it, but I'm going to let everything rest mostly because it would hurt me more if I did take revenge. People have let me know his nice gestures were the bare minimum, but I've never seen anyone do things like that. My mother and father were divorced, so I've never seen love displayed like that. I thought it was something that only happened in Hallmark films. Thank you all for your kind messages and comments. I read all of them and it's helped me throughout all this. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thanks for everything. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Ex-wife cheated and left me for another man. Now she's alone and broke while I'm happily married to an amazing woman. When you marry your spouse, you have to recite vows, such as in sickness and in health, for better or for worse, and most importantly, till death do us part. I, male, 45, took those vows seriously when I married my first wife, 45, 15 years ago. The two of us married after dating for about 4 years and living together for 2. It seemed like we were a great fit for one another, similar goals, interests, values, and everything like that. It was around 3 years in when I started noticing little things. She wasn't distant or anything, and still accepted my touch, but she was sneaky. My ex never wanted me to see her phone. Not that I had a reason to at the time, but making it so obvious drew attention to it. This probably ended up being her downfall. The thing that made me realize something was going on was when her phone rang while we were watching a movie one night. She bolted to the bathroom and started talking in hushed voices. I confronted her when she came back because that was just too strange for me not to bring up. Again, more denial that nothing was going on. It was her friend who really needed to talk to her. I remember hearing a male voice before she rushed off to the bathroom, so I confronted her about that fact. "It's a guy friend," was her excuse. As far as I knew, my wife didn't have any male friends. I wouldn't have had a problem with it, but the fact that she didn't say anything was concerning. So I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed her phone from her when she was texting on it constantly one day. She shouted at me, but I got the evidence I needed. I saw text back and forth with this guy named John. They were of a romantic and sexual nature, which just confirmed for me that my wife had been cheating on me. I asked how long this had been going on. "A few months. It wasn't something I was looking for. It just happened." The thought never crossed my mind that she would ever step outside our marriage. Sounded silly, but I never saw it coming. We seemed happy, and she seemed genuinely happy to me. Yet here she was, telling me she had cheated on me with some guy she met at a coffee shop of all places. He was the barista and started flirting with her. One thing led to another, and a month later they started an affair. Cheating was a deal-breaker for me, so I told my wife our marriage was over. She cried and seemed genuinely distraught by the thought that our marriage was going to be over. This lasted for a few days until I told her I had finally gone to the lawyer to start the divorce process. After I told my wife, she told me that she never loved me anyway, and her new boyfriend would make her happier than I ever would. The sudden change in her attitude was shocking. I knew she was just doing this to hurt me, so I tried to brush it off. In a little under a week, my wife moved out and stayed with her family. I almost wanted to ask why she hadn't moved in with her new boyfriend, but I wanted to make a clean break from her. After the papers were signed, I felt relieved. However, there was also devastation. I hated the fact that my first marriage had ended the way it did. We were supposed to spend the rest of our lives together. At the time, I was close to turning 35 and facing the end of my marriage. My ex seemed so happy once the divorce was final. She'd be posting pictures on Facebook of her new boyfriend. I had to eventually delete my Facebook because it wasn't a good idea for me to constantly obsess over what she was doing. I then started working on myself, working out, hobbies, friends, and everything I could do to keep my mind off my ex. The divorce was a necessity, but it didn't mean that I wasn't hurt that this ended up being the outcome. It was entirely my ex-wife's fault. All she had to do was stick to her vows. How hard was that? After about a year, I was starting to reach a new level of happiness. I wasn't sure what my ex-wife was up to, and didn't care. My sister cared because she took it upon herself to tell me what happened to my wife. They had mutual friends, so it was easy to find out what was going on with my ex. The guy ended up taking her for all she was worth. She paid his bills, gave him money for a business, and the kicker was he had been cheating on her the entire time. I didn't feel any pity for my ex because now she knew how it felt. How did she think a cheater was going to be faithful to her? That was beyond me. She was in a lot of debt now, thanks to giving him so much money. During our marriage, we both had good jobs and made decent money. We had long since paid off any debt we had, so it was a shock to learn that she had ended up in such a bad financial spot. This woman my sister was describing to me didn't sound like my ex at all. It sounded like an entirely different woman. She was so desperate that she had even gone around asking others for money, including my sister. I was surprised she didn't reach out to me, but I had her blocked on all my devices. We didn't share any children, so there was no reason for us to remain in contact. Once I met my second wife, all thoughts of my ex flew out of my mind. We met at work, actually, and while it's never a good idea to get involved with a coworker, I couldn't help myself. The same applied to her. It was about 1.5 years after we met and started dating that I proposed. It was quite fast, but I felt like it was right. When my wedding was announced, my ex did reach out to me to tell me, "Congratulations." I just responded with a smiley emoji because, how else can you respond to that? I didn't have any obligation to speak with her, but I still wanted to say something to her. just to get it off my mind and never have to think about it again for as long as I lived. Now, I'm 45, and I've been married to my second wife for years. Things couldn't be better between the both of us. The last I heard, my first wife was still alone and hopping from relationship to relationship. The way things are looking for my ex is not good. She is going to end up being alone when she could have had a long-lasting relationship. I guess I should thank her, because if she hadn't cheated on me, I never would have met my second wife, who is amazing. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Wife made a handmade gift for her abusive brother's fiancé, then got uninvited from the wedding, so I took the gift back. My wife Lena crochets a lot and often gifts it to friends and family. When her second oldest brother got married, she made the bride a shawl to wear over her dress in the evening. The bride loved it, and ever since Lena has made shawls for everyone in her family getting married. Now Lena's oldest brother, George, is getting married again. Lena doesn't have a relationship with George as he was abusive to her as a child. But if she has to see him, then she is polite but distant with him. She doesn't want to cut off the rest of her family because of George. I work with George, and while we aren't friends, we are friendly at work. Lena encouraged this when George got moved to my team. I was going to request a transfer, not wanting to expose Lena to George, as my team do a lot of get-togethers with our significant others as it is a family wedding. Lena's mom asked her if she could crochet a shawl for George's fiancé, and Lena agreed. It was arranged that once it was finished, I would take it to work to give to George so that Lena didn't have to see him. Earlier this week, the shawl was completed, and I emailed George at work to let him know that I would bring it in today as the wedding is tomorrow. When I got into work this morning, I gave George the shawl and let him know that Lena and I were looking forward to the wedding. Come lunchtime, Lena called me to let me know that George's fiancé had called her and told her that she was no longer invited to the wedding, citing the place they are having the wedding in and the reception. It is too small for the number they have coming, so are having to make cutbacks. However, I was still invited to the wedding. I was mad at this because they clearly only invited Lena to get a shawl, which to me is just rude. If they had asked Lena outright to make one, she probably would have done because she loves to crochet. On my way out of work, I noticed George wasn't at his desk, but the shawl was. I was still mad that they had used Lena to get a shawl, and I just shoved it in my work bag. I left a note on his desk telling George since Lena was no longer invited, the shawl and I would no longer be attending either. On my way home, I told Lena what I had done and asked her if she wanted to go out instead so not to waste having a sitter. Lena was upset that I had taken the shawl as it was causing an uproar in her family group chat where people were calling her petty because I took it back. Lena wants me to give it back. I don't think I should. They don't deserve Lena's kindness. However, at the same time, I don't want Lena to be upset with me over George and a shawl. Am I the a-hole for taking back the shawl? Edit. I have messaged the group chat letting them know that I took it, and if they should be pissed at anyone then it should be me, but I would also do it again because no one gets to be a dick to Lena. Update. AITA for taking back a shawl my wife made for a bride-to-be after she was uninvited from the wedding? September 16, 2023. I have absolutely no idea how to post an update in AITA, so I figured it was best to post it here in case anyone is interested in it. So everyone will be glad to know that I have not given George back the shawl. I mean, part of the reason I haven't given it back is because he's on his honeymoon. One hope has reigned for the 2 weeks. But even if he wasn't, I still wouldn't give it back. Later that evening, Lena apologized for being mad at me. She said that she should have never agreed to make the shawl in the first place and was grateful I had taken it back. Lena and I had a long discussion about her family and how they treat her. I told her that I would always stand up for her when it comes to her family because I will stand strong when she can't. I asked her what she thought about going lower contact. We were already low contact with George, his now wife, and her mom. Lena said that she wanted to go no contact with George, his wife, her mom, and to go low contact with everyone else but her second oldest brother and his wife. We'll call them Michael and Sarah. She said she wanted to do this because of how toxic the group chat had become, which she has now left and has shown me that she has left and deleted the chat. We have both blocked everyone but Michael and Sarah. I'm going to wait a couple of weeks before I broach therapy for Lena again. I just want the dust to settle a bit as I don't want her to feel pushed into anything. The story the wife gave Lena about there not being enough space was Michael confirmed that George had told him weeks ago that they were well under numbers for their venue. it was just an attempt at a power move. I know some Redditors were concerned about my work life after I took the shawl. I spoke with my manager and told him that Lena had made a shawl for George's wife, but they had given a reason for uninviting her to the wedding the day before the wedding, and I took it back. When I told my manager this, he sighed heavily before telling me that he wished I hadn't taken the shawl because George could make things difficult for me, but that he would have done exactly the same thing because George is a nightmare. I told him that I'd like to move to another team because it wasn't good for Lena to have to be around him. He told me to leave it with him and he would see what he could do. I'd have moved when George was first put on my team, but Lena encouraged me not to as she didn't want me to rock the boat with her family. I heard back on Monday that I will be getting moved to another team at the end of the week. This other team is desperate for someone, so when my manager reached out to other managers to see if anyone had an internal vacancy, this manager bit his arm off. The day of the wedding, Michael called Lena and asked what our plans had been for the day. Michael knew that Lena wasn't invited to the wedding and rightly assumed I wouldn't go if she wasn't welcome. Lena told him that we had planned to go out for dinner and drinks. Michael told her that sounded like a plan and to text him where we were going for dinner. Michael and Sarah had decided to skip the wedding after seeing the meltdown of George, his wife, and their mom in the group chat. Apparently, they continued spouting abuse at Lena even though she had left the group chat. When the family turned on me and our children was when Michael and Sarah decided they weren't going to the wedding at all. They were just going to go to the ceremony after Lena had been uninvited. They messaged George to tell him their flight had been delayed and they wouldn't be able to make it. Their flight wasn't delayed. It was just the excuse they used, and George never responded. Michael had seen George's abuse of Lena firsthand. He had tried to protect Lena where he could, but there was only so much he could do as a child himself and didn't want to be on the receiving end of George's temper either. As an adult, he took the first chance he had to move away from his family while only maintaining contact with Lena. So we went out with Michael and Sarah, having a much better night than we would have done at the wedding. There was no snide comments, no belittling, nothing. Lena was happy as she got to see Sarah, and that was what she was looking forward to. Lena being happy was all I wanted. It's all I ever want, my family to be happy. Both Michael and Sarah's phones did keep going off all night as Mill and George kept messaging them angry at their non-attendance. Especially after Michael posted a picture of the four of us together having drinks on Facebook with a caption about how he was choosing Lena over George going forward because she doesn't use people to get what they want like George did over a crochet shawl. Michael admitted to me later that he did this to anger George because he'd have a meltdown at the reception and then his in-laws could see what an ass he actually is. Given the gleeful messages I got from Michael last week after he had heard back from a cousin who attended, George had a complete meltdown. Lena knows about this post, but she is not comfortable with me posting pictures of her work. She considered unraveling the shawl, but she found it difficult to undo all her hard work, which I understand. It's the very reason I didn't unravel it myself and tell George it was an IKEA shawl. Well, that and I didn't want to face a mad Lena. After talking with Sarah about what to do with it, she has decided that she's going to keep it, but she will dye it. Michael suggested that she wears it to the family Christmas. We aren't going to see Lena's family at Christmas, so it won't be happening anyway. Michael and I are at the same level of pettiness as I had previously suggested, as some people commented on my original post that I could wear it to work when George is back. I didn't show Lena many of the comments. She doesn't need to see people calling her a doormat or saying she needs to grow a spine. Those people clearly haven't had their spirit completely broken by the people who are meant to love them unconditionally or were completely cut out of family events. When George graduated from uni, Lena was left at home. She was 8 years old and left home alone all day. Christmas was spent mostly in her bedroom because her grandmother didn't want Lena around as her presence would just upset George. Until she was 14, then she would sneak out and spend it with me and my family. Lena was just left out of everything. Her dad used to work away from home a lot, so he had no idea what was going on. He just assumed Lena liked her own space, not that she would just stay in her room because she was used to being neglected by her family. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.